The skyline of Lysithra Prime was a headache waiting to happen. A sprawling, impossible geometry of crystal and light that refused to obey the simple, brutal laws of human engineering. Noah Reyes squinted against the glare, his polarized visor darkening automatically. But it did little to mute the sheer, overwhelming vibrance of the alien capital. 10 years ago, he had looked at this planet through the targeting scope of a dropship, waiting for the order to burn it all down. Now, he was standing on a floating promenade 3,000 feet above the ground, wearing a rented security uniform that chafed at the neck, paid to protect the very people who had nearly wiped his battalion off the galactic map. Life had a funny way of making a joke out of you. Below him, the city breathed. It was not a metaphor. The massive, spiraling towers that anchored the capital were grown, not built, cultivated from semi-sentient coral and reinforced with transparent steel. They pulsed with a rhythmic, bioluminescent glow, a soft teal heartbeat that synced with the planet's magnetic field. Skyways threaded between these living spires like spiderwebs made of spun glass, carrying silent maglev trains and personal gliders. Beyond the atmospheric shield, which shimmered like a soap bubble against the vacuum, the triple moons of the Vylori system hung heavy and violet in the sky. It was beautiful. It was majestic. It made Noah want to spit over the railing. He tapped the side of his helmet, checking the comms channel. Static and the chittering musical cadence of the Vylori language filled his ear. He was the only human on this detail. Of course he was. The Treaty of the Silver Void required integrated security for all high-level diplomatic events, and the Vylori High Council had hired exactly one human contractor to meet the quota. Noah was the token ape, the diversity hire meant to show the galaxy that humanity and the Vylori Empire were the best of friends. Reyes, hold position at Sector 4? A voice crackled in his ear. It was Commander Kalen, a Vylori officer who looked at Noah the way one might look at a particularly aggressive fungus. The Queen approaches the plaza. Keep your weapons stowed unless engaged. We do not want to frighten the tourists with your primitive aesthetics. Understood, Commander, Noah replied, his voice flat, keeping the primitive aesthetics tucked away. He cut the link and shifted his stance, adjusting the heavy pulse rifle slung across his chest. He was 38 years old, but his knees felt 60. The dampeners in his armor were supposed to offset the slightly higher gravity of Lysithra Prime, but nothing could offset the weight of memory. Every time a Vylori civilian walked past him, tall, slender, their skin shimmering with that iridescent pearl-like sheen, he didn't see a pedestrian. He saw the skirmish lines on Eridanus 4. He saw the way their psychic shock troopers could scramble a Marine's brain before he could even lift a rifle. He checked his perimeter. The plaza was filling up. This was the ceremony of harmony, marking the 10th anniversary of the ceasefire. It was a political theater piece, loud and colorful. Delegates from a dozen worlds were mingling, drinking nectar from flute-like glasses, surrounded by floating ceremonial drones that projected holograms of peace doves and star charts. Nearby, two Vylori guards were muttering to each other, their helmets retracted to reveal their angular, beautiful faces. They glanced at Noah, then back to the crowd. Noah caught a few words of their dialect. Something about a brute, something about a leash. Noah smirked behind his visor. He had been called worse things by better soldiers. He let his gaze drift, falling back into the old rhythm. Scan, assess, ignore the pretty lights. Look for the hands. Look for the eyes that weren't watching the show. The plaza was a sensory overload. The air smelled of ozone and crushed lilacs, the scent of the biofilters scrubbing the atmosphere. Music began to swell, a harmonic vibration that wasn't just heard but felt in the teeth and bones. It was the anthem of the Valori Queen. A hush fell over the crowd, rippling outward like a wave. The massive doors of the imperial spire slid open with a sound like singing crystal. And there she was, Queen Lysara. Noah had seen her face on propaganda posters and news feeds for a decade. He had seen her denounced as a tyrant by human radicals and worshipped as a living goddess by her own people. But seeing her in the flesh was a different kind of impact. It was like looking directly into a solar flare. She was tall, even for a Valori, moving with a fluid grace that made the air seem to part around her. Her skin was the color of moonlight on water, opalescent and shifting in hue with her mood. Right now, it was a calm, regal pale blue. She wore robes of woven light that drifted around her body, disregarding gravity. But it was her crown that held the attention. It wasn't metal. It was a construct of living nanofibers, a halo of golden light that wove itself through her long silver hair, constantly moving, constantly reshaping itself. It was the neural interface for the entire planetary defense grid, or so the rumors said. She walked through the center of the plaza, flanked by her elite Praetorian guard. Levitating camera drones buzzed around her like flies. She raised a hand, and the crowd roared in adoration. But Noah, watching from his vantage point near a decorative pillar, saw something else. He zoomed his visor in. He saw the tension in her jaw. He saw the way her luminous eyes, violet and piercing, darted left and right, not with joy, but with calculation. She didn't look like a goddess soaking in worship. She looked like a woman walking through a minefield. A holographic news feed flickered on a nearby public screen, scrolling headlines in 3 languages. Human alliance protest groups demand renegotiation of trade tariffs. Valori purists decry Queen Lysara's weakness. Is she bending to the humans? Rumors of insurrection in the Outer Rim. Noah read the headlines and snorted softly. She was getting it from both sides. To the humans. She was the face of the enemy empire that had killed millions. To her own hardliners, she was the traitor who had signed a peace treaty instead of finishing the genocide. Lonely at the top, Noah muttered to himself. He scanned the crowd again. The queen was ascending the dais now, a raised platform of white stone in the center of the plaza. She was preparing to perform the rite of unification, a psychic ritual where she would supposedly project a wave of empathetic peace across the city. That was when the itch started. It was a sensation Noah hadn't felt since the war, a prickling at the base of his skull, a cold sweat breaking under his armor. It was the soldier's instinct, the subconscious brain processing a threat before the conscious mind could name it. Something was wrong. His eyes darted across the sea of faces, thousands of Valori, a few hundred humans, all watching the queen. There, Sector 6, a maintenance drone. The drones were programmed with strict flight paths. They moved in perfect mathematical arcs. But one drone, a heavy lifter unit hovering near the edge of the dais, had just corrected its stabilizers. It had dipped, just a fraction of an inch, as if it were suddenly carrying more weight than it was registered for. Noah's heart hammered against his ribs. He looked past the drone, into the shadow of a decorative archway. The atmospheric shield flickered, just a blip, a millisecond of distortion, like heat haze. Cloaking field, Noah thought, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. He didn't wait for permission. He didn't radio Kalen. In the time it would take to explain, the queen would be dead. Weapon free. Noah growled to himself. He broke from his position, his heavy boots slamming onto the polished crystal floor. The sound was swallowed by the swelling orchestral music, but the visual was impossible to miss. a heavily armored human charging toward the queen of the Vailori Empire. Guards turned, their weapons raising. "Halt!" a Praetorian screamed. Noah ignored them. He was sprinting, his lungs burning, his eyes locked on that shimmering distortion near the drone. He saw the shimmer solidify. A figure, clad in matte black stealth armor, materialized on top of the archway. A long-barreled rail rifle swiveled toward Lysara's exposed back. "Gun!" Noah roared, his voice amplified by his helmet's external speakers. "Sniper!" The crowd didn't understand. They were still cheering. Lysara began to turn, her expression confused, her glow flaring to a startled yellow. The assassin fired. At the same instant, Noah launched himself into the air. He activated his armor's jump assist, a burst of compressed nitrogen that propelled him across the gap between the crowd barrier and the dais. He didn't try to intercept the bullet. That was movie nonsense. A rail slug moved at Mach 7. You didn't catch it. You moved the target. Noah slammed into Queen Lysara with the force of a wrecking ball. He hit her mid-waist, tackling her hard. The impact knocked the wind out of both of them. He drove her down, his momentum carrying them skidding across the white stone just as the air where her head had been exploded with a thunderclap. The rail slug shattered the crystalline podium, sending razor-sharp shrapnel spraying into the crowd. Chaos erupted. The music glitched, looping into a high-pitched electronic shriek. The crowd screamed, a sound that transcended species. Noah and Lysara crashed behind a heavy decorative pillar. He landed on top of her, his armored bulk pinning her delicate frame to the ground. He expected her to scream, to struggle. Instead, he felt a sudden, massive surge of pressure against his mind, like a headache spiking to a migraine in a microsecond. Her crown flared blinding white. She was instinctively charging a psychic shockwave. "Down!" Noah barked, slapping a hand over her shoulder to keep her flat. "Stay down." A second assassin materialized in the crowd, throwing a metallic sphere onto the dais. "Gravity charge!" Noah yelled. The sphere detonated. It wasn't an explosion of fire, but of force. The gravity in a 30-foot radius instantly inverted and then collapsed. Debris, dust, and chunks of the shattered podium were sucked into a violent vortex before being blasted outward with the force of a cannon. Noah curled his body over the queen, making himself a human shield. The shockwave hit him, his armor locked up, servos whining in protest as the gravity distortion tried to crush his ribs. He felt the heat of the blast sizzle against his backplate, the smell of burning composite filling his helmet. Beneath him, Lysara was trembling, not with fear, he realized, but with fury. Her skin was flashing a violent, chaotic red. He pressed her head down, his gauntleted hand tangling in her silver hair. He smelled her scent, not sweat and fear, but something intoxicating and strange, like night-blooming jasmine and static electricity. "Contact rear," Noah gritted out, ignoring the red warning icons flashing on his HUD. He rolled off her, transitioning into a crouch, and raised his pulse rifle. The sniper on the archway was cycling for a second shot. Noah didn't hesitate. He squeezed the trigger, sending a volley of superheated plasma bolts tearing through the air. The shots went wide of the assassin but struck the heavy lifter drone hovering next to him. The drone exploded, its power core detonating in a ball of blue fire. The force of the blast knocked the sniper from his perch. He fell 40 feet, crashing onto the promenade with a wet crunch. The assassin who had thrown the gravity grenade was moving in, a vibro blade snapping into existence from his wrist gauntlet. He was Vailori, but his face was hidden behind a smooth, featureless mask. Noah raised his rifle, but the weapon clicked dry. The gravity distortion had fried the power cell. "Damn it," Noah hissed. The assassin lunged. Noah sidestepped, moving with a speed that surprised the attacker. He used the stock of his rifle like a club, smashing it into the assassin's faceplate. The mask cracked. The assassin staggered back, but spun around with a fluid martial arts grace, the vibroblade humming for Noah's throat. Suddenly, the assassin froze. He stopped in midair, his body rigid, his muscles locking up as if he had been dipped in liquid nitrogen. Noah blinked. The assassin was vibrating, his blade inches from Noah's neck. Noah looked back. Lysara was standing up. She was magnificent and terrifying. Her robes were torn, her hair wild, her crown blazing with a light so intense it hurt to look at. She had one hand raised, her fingers curled into a claw. She was gripping the assassin with her mind. She flicked her wrist. The assassin was flung backward as if hit by a freight train. He smashed into the far wall of the plaza, pinned there by an invisible hand. The Praetorian Guard finally swarmed the dais, weapons raised, shouting orders. Secure the queen. Perimeter breach. Noah slumped against the pillar, his chest heaving. His armor was smoking. His ribs felt like broken glass. He looked at the assassin pinned against the wall. The Vailori man was coughing up violet blood, his chest crushed. The assassin looked past the guards, past the screaming civilians, and locked eyes with Lysara. The crown engine will kneel, the assassin gasped, his voice wet and gargling. And so will you. Then his head slumped forward, dead. Noah let out a long breath and slid down the pillar to a sitting position. He ripped off his helmet, gasping for unfiltered air. The ozone smell was thick. A Vailori guard loomed over him, weapon pointed at Noah's face. Drop the weapon, human! Noah dropped the useless rifle. I'm on your side, genius, he rasped. Silence the prisoner, the guard shouted. Noah looked over at Lysara. She was surrounded by a wall of shields now, her advisors swarming her. But for a split second, through the gap in the bodies, she looked back. Her glow had faded to a pale, shocked white. She looked at the dead assassin, then at Noah. Then the guards dragged him away. The interrogation room was designed to make humans uncomfortable. The ceiling was too high, the temperature set to a freezing chill that Vailori preferred, and the light was a stark, sterile violet that made Noah's eyes water. Noah sat in a chair that was designed for someone 6 inches taller and much thinner. His armor had been stripped away, leaving him in his sweat-stained undersuit. His ribs were taped up, but they still throbbed with every heartbeat. Across the table sat High Inquisitor Vex. Vex was old, his skin the texture of dried parchment, his eyes milky and unblinking. Tell me again, Vex said, his voice a dry hiss, how you anticipated the gravity flux. I didn't anticipate the flux, Noah said, leaning back and crossing his arms. I saw the distortion. Your shield grid has a refresh rate of 60 cycles. The cloaking field was out of sync. It created visual artifacts. Visual artifacts, Vex repeated skeptically. That a human security contractor noticed. But our finest sensor arrays missed. Maybe you should calibrate your sensors better, Noah said, his tone dripping with a sarcasm that was pure defense mechanism. Or maybe your sensors were told to look the other way. Vex slammed a hand on the table. Do not play games with me, human. You tackled the queen. You laid hands on the sovereign. That alone is punishable by death. I saved her life, Noah shot back, his temper flaring. If I hadn't tackled her, her head would be a fine mist on the plaza floor right now. You're welcome, by the way. We have found encrypted credits in the assassin's accounts, Vex said, ignoring him. We are tracing the source. Perhaps we will find a deposit in your name as well. Perhaps this was all a theater piece. The brave human saves the queen, earning trust, infiltrating the inner circle. Noah laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. You think I did this for money? Look at me. Vex. I live in a hab block the size of a coffin. I eat synthetic paste. If I was a mastermind conspirator, I'd be doing a better job of it. You are a soldier, Vex said softly. Soldiers follow orders. Who ordered you to be there? My shift supervisor, Noah said. Vex stood up, his hand drifting toward the neural whip on his belt. I think we need to peel back these layers of insolence. A little pain often clarifies the memory. The door to the interrogation chamber hissed open. Inquisitor, a voice said. It wasn't a shout. It was barely above a whisper, but it carried absolute crushing authority. Vex froze. He turned, bowing low. Your Majesty. Queen Lysara stepped into the room. She had changed out of her ruined ceremonial robes and was now wearing a simpler gown of dark blue silk. Her crown was dimmed, the nanofibers resting dormant against her hair. She looked tired. The glow of her skin was faint, pulsing with a slow, rhythmic melancholy. Leave us, she said. But Majesty, Vex stammered, he is a suspect. The investigation is finished for the moment, Lysara said. The assassin was of the House of Kor. We have identified his lineage. This human is not part of their faction. Now, leave us. She didn't raise her voice, but Vex flinched as if she had struck him. He bowed again and scuttled out of the room, the door sealing behind him with a heavy thud. Silence stretched in the cold room. Noah sat up straighter, feeling suddenly exposed without his armor. He tried to muster some of his usual bravado, but it died in his throat. Lysara walked around the table. She didn't sit. She stood across from him, studying him with those luminous, unnerving eyes. You are Noah Reyes, she said, former sergeant, United Earth Marine Corps, 4th Battalion. You fought at the siege of Eridanus. Noah's jaw tightened. I did. You killed many of my people. I did, Noah said. He didn't look away. And your people killed everyone in my platoon. Are we keeping score, Your Majesty? Because I think the war ended 10 years ago. Lysara tilted her head. Her expression wasn't angry. It was curious. It was the first time Noah had seen a Vailori look at a human with anything other than contempt or indifference. You saved me, she said. Why? Noah shrugged, wincing as his ribs protested. It's the job. No, she said. She moved closer. I felt you. When you shielded me. I felt your mind. It was loud. You were afraid. You were in pain. You hate this planet. You hate my government. You hate me. I think... Noah looked down at his hands. I don't hate you, he muttered. I'm tired of the bodies. She paused. Yet, when the shot was fired, you did not hesitate. You did not think of politics or history. You thought only of the life in front of you. She reached out. For a moment, Noah flinched, expecting a blow, but she merely placed her hand on the table, inches from his. Thank you, Noah Reyes, she said. It was formal, but her eyes held his. And then, it happened again. That tingle. It started in his forehead and washed down his spine. It wasn't invasive, like a psychic attack. It was warm. It was like standing in front of a fireplace on a cold night. He felt a sudden, inexplicable wave of gratitude wash over him, not his own, but hers. She was projecting her emotion directly into him. He felt her relief. He felt her crushing exhaustion. And beneath the regal exterior, he felt a profound, aching loneliness that mirrored his own. He gasped, pulling back in his chair. Don't do that, he whispered roughly. Don't get in my head. Lysara pulled her hand back, looking surprised. I apologize. I did not mean to intrude. It is difficult to contain when the emotions are strong. She stared at him for a second longer, her gaze lingering on the scar that ran down his chin, on his tired brown eyes. She seemed to be searching for something, a puzzle piece she hadn't known was missing. "You are free to go to your quarters," she said, her voice regaining its royal distance. "You will remain within the palace guest wing while we conclude the security sweep. You are a material witness." She turned and walked to the door. "Your Majesty?" Noah called out. She paused, looking back. "Watch your back," he said. "That assassin. He said the crown engine would kneel. That's not random crazy talk. That's code." "I know," Lysara said softly. The light in the room seemed to dim with her mood. "I know exactly what it means." Then she was gone. The guest quarters were luxurious compared to Noah's apartment in the slums, but they still felt like a cage. The walls were smooth amber crystal, and the bed hovered on a magnetic field. Noah paced the small room, his mind racing. He couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the sniper's scope glinting. He felt the gravity wave crushing him. He felt Lysara's mind touching his. He sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out his personal data pad. He tapped the record button. It was a habit from the war, logging his thoughts to keep from going crazy. "Log entry," he said, his voice raspy in the quiet room. "Date. Whatever the hell date it is. Incident report." He rubbed his face, feeling the stubble. "I'm stuck in the palace, and they're feeding me fruit that tastes like copper and treating me like a bomb that might go off. But I'm alive." He laughed darkly. "I saved the alien queen from assassins. Yeah. Put that on the resume. I saved her, and she did the unexpected to reward me." He paused, looking at the glowing wall. "She looked at me like I was more than a prop, like I was a person." He snorted, shaking his head at his own sentimentality. "Reward. Right. The reward will probably be a pat on the head and a deportation order. Thanks for saving the monarchy. Now get off our planet. Monkey." He clicked the recorder off and tossed it onto the bedside table. He lay back, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the nightmares to come. Deep in the heart of the imperial spire, within the private sanctum that no guard was allowed to enter, Queen Lysara sat on her meditation mat. The room was dark, lit only by the starlight filtering through the transparent ceiling. She had removed her crown. It sat on a pedestal nearby, the nanofibers dormant and still. She closed her eyes and reached into the memory. Valori memory was not like human memory. It was not a hazy recollection of images. It was a perfect, sensory replay. She replayed the moment on the plaza. She felt the impact of Noah's body hitting hers. She felt the roughness of his armor. She smelled the old sweat and the gun oil. But more than that, she felt him. The psychic imprint he had left on her was chaotic and raw. She felt his self-loathing, a dark, jagged pit in his soul. She felt the trauma of the war, the screams of his dying friends. But wrapped around that darkness was a blinding core of courage, a stubborn refusal to let death win. He had shielded her not because he loved her, but because it was right. Because he was a protector, down to his marrow. Her advisors were screaming for her to increase security, to bring in more Valori guards, to lock down the city. They told her humans were treacherous. They told her the assassin was a lone wolf. They were lying. She knew they were lying. The conspiracy was deep. She could feel the rot in her own counsel. She needed someone who wasn't part of the game. Someone who had nothing to gain and everything to lose. Someone who was too stubborn to lie to her. She opened her eyes. Her skin began to glow with a fierce, determined gold. She tapped her communication link. Commander Kalen. Yes, Your Majesty. Bring the human to me at first light, she commanded. To the interrogation room. Majesty? No, Lysara said, standing up and walking to the window to look out at the shimmering, dangerous city. Bring him to my private audience chamber. And Kalen? Yes. Majesty? Bring him alone. The corridor leading to the private wing of the Imperial Palace was not built for humans. It was built to make a person feel small. Noah Reyes walked down the center of a hallway that seemed to have been carved from a single, massive diamond. The floor was a translucent composite that allowed him to see the slow, rhythmic pulsing of bioluminescent veins deep beneath his feet, the organic circulatory system of the living city. Above him, the ceiling arched 50 feet high, made of a semi-transparent crystal that magnified the starlight from outside, casting the entire space in a dreamlike silver haze. It was quiet here, too quiet. The air smelled different than the ozone-heavy plaza. Here, it smelled like rain on hot stone and ancient dust. He felt like a muddy boot print on a pristine white sheet. 2 members of the Praetorian Guard walked ahead of him, their armor silent, their movements fluid. Behind him floated a protocol drone, a spherical machine with a single blue eye that had been nagging him for the last 10 minutes. Shoulders back, the drone chirped in a synthesized, haughty voice. Your spinal alignment suggests aggression. Please simulate a posture of deference. Noah gritted his teeth, keeping his eyes forward. I am walking. Tin can. It is called walking. The drone swooped in front of his face, forcing him to stop. When you enter the presence of the sovereign, you must perform the obeisance of the 3 moons. The drone instructed. Bend the left knee, extend the right hand palm up, and lower the chin until it touches the clavicle. Do not make eye contact until spoken to. Noah stared at the drone. You want me to do what? The obeisance of the 3 moons. Yeah, I heard you, Noah said, stepping around the machine. My knees do not bend that way anymore. Not since your people blew up my transport on Eridanus. I call that move the arthritis crunch. A soft snort came from one of the guards ahead. Noah glanced up. The guard on the left, a young Valori with pale green markings on his neck, was fighting to keep his expression neutral. But the corner of his mouth twitched. See? Noah muttered to the drone. Even the kid thinks it is funny. Let's skip the royal yoga and just open the door. The drone let out a sound that was suspiciously like a sigh of despair and retreated to hover behind him. They reached the end of the hall. The doors here were not the massive, intimidating slabs of the outer palace. They were modest, woven from living wood that shimmered with gold sap. The guard stepped aside, turning to face the walls. Enter, the young guard said softly. And try not to break anything. Noah adjusted his jacket. He was wearing a fresh uniform provided by the palace quartermaster, but it felt just as stiff as the armor. He took a breath, steeled himself, and pushed the doors open. The Queen's private audience chamber was a shock. Noah had expected a throne room. He had expected gold, velvet, and intimidation. Instead, the room was a sanctuary of soft light and flowing water. A stream ran through the center of the floor, feeding a garden of violet moss and floating orchids. The walls were lined with shelves containing actual physical books, paper and ink, which were incredibly rare in a digital galaxy. Queen Lysara stood by a large circular window that looked out over the glittering expanse of the capital. She was not wearing her crown. Her silver hair hung loose down her back, pooling like liquid moonlight against her dark blue gown. She turned as he entered. Leave us. she said to the protocol drone that had tried to follow Noah in. The drone beeped a protest. Majesty, the security protocols dictate. Leave us, Lysara repeated. Her voice was soft, but it carried the weight of a hammer striking an anvil. The drone reversed course and zipped out of the room. The doors clicked shut, sealing them in silence. Noah stood awkwardly by the stream. He didn't bow. He didn't perform the obeisance of the 3 moons. He just stood there, hands clasped behind his back, waiting. Lysara studied him. Her skin was glowing with a pale, steady peach color. Curiosity, maybe, or caution. You do not like being here, she stated. I am not big on palaces, Noah replied honestly. I tend to break the furniture. Lysara moved toward a low table made of polished obsidian. She gestured for him to sit. He hesitated, then lowered himself onto a cushion that was surprisingly firm. I have reviewed the security footage of the attack, she said, sitting opposite him. 3 separate times. The speed of your reaction was improbable. For a human. Paranoia keeps you young, Noah said, or at least it keeps you alive. She poured a clear liquid from a crystal decanter into 2 small cups. She pushed one toward him. It is nectar from the sun fruit. It is not alcoholic, but it calms the nerves. Noah took the cup. He didn't drink. Look, Your Majesty, if this is about a reward, you can keep the credits. I did my job. Just sign my release papers so I can go back to my patrol route. I have a rent payment due in 3 days. Lysara looked down at her cup. Her hands, Noah noticed, were trembling slightly. I cannot send you back, she said. Noah stiffened. Why? Am I under arrest? No, she said, looking up. Her eyes were intense, luminous violet burning with a desperate resolve. You are the only person in this entire city who saw a threat before my own guards did. You are the only one who threw his body between me and a gravity charge. That was instinct. Noah argued it was truth, she corrected. In that moment, you had no time to lie, no time to calculate political gain. You simply acted. She took a breath, and her glow flared brighter. I am surrounded by masks. Noah Reyes. My counselors smile and plot treason. My guards are loyal to the crown, not the woman wearing it. I am blind. I have psychic power enough to crush a tank. But I cannot see the knives in the dark because everyone around me has learned to shield their minds. She leaned forward. I need eyes that are not clouded by ambition. I need a shield that does not fear me. I am offering you a position, not as a contractor, as my truth keeper. Noah blinked. He had heard the term. It was an ancient Valori title, something out of their mythology. Truth keeper? Noah asked, his voice skeptical. That sounds like a priest. I am not religious. It is a protector, she explained. But more than that, it requires a bond, a partial psychic link. It would allow me to sense your intent, and you to sense mine. It would allow you to stand in my presence and act as a filter for deception. Noah stood up so fast he nearly knocked over the table. Whoa, he said, backing away. Hold on. A link? You want to get inside my head? Permanently? It is not permanent in the sense of, no, Noah interrupted, holding up a hand. Absolutely not. With all due respect, Your Majesty, my head is my own. It is the only piece of real estate I own that is not mortgaged. You saw what happened in the interrogation room. You touched my mind for 2 seconds and I nearly passed out. I would train you, she said, standing up to meet him. You would learn to shield. I do not want to learn, Noah snapped. He realized he was shouting at a queen, but he couldn't stop. I have things in here, lady. Things you do not want to see. Memories that would turn that pretty light of yours dark gray. I am not poster boy material for a queen. I am a broken-down grunt with a drinking problem and a bad knee. Find some noble paladin with a shiny soul." "I do not want a shiny soul," Lysara shouted back. The outburst shocked them both. Her skin flushed a deep, turbulent violet. She took a step toward him, and for the first time she didn't look like a monarch. She looked like a terrified young woman standing on the edge of a cliff. "I do not want a paladin," she said, her voice dropping to a fierce whisper. "I want someone who knows what it costs to survive. I want someone who has scars because I am drowning in scars that no one else can see." She reached out, palm up, a plea. "Please," she said, "I am asking you to trust me. Because if I do not find someone I can trust, I will be dead before the next moonrise. And the war you fought so hard to survive, it will start all over again." Noah looked at her hand. He looked at the desperation in her eyes. He wanted to run, to every instinct he had screamed at him to find the nearest exit and never look back. But he remembered the assassin's words. "The crown engine will kneel." He remembered the feeling of her trembling beneath him on the plaza floor. He let out a long, ragged breath. "You are making a mistake," he muttered. "Perhaps," Lysara said, a ghost of a smile touching her lips. "But it is my mistake to make." Before Noah could answer, the doors to the chamber burst open. The spell was broken. Noah spun around, hand reaching for a weapon he wasn't wearing. 3 Valori men strode in, their robes sweeping the floor. They were high counselors, their faces masks of indignation. Leading them was Lord Varric, a tall, gaunt man with skin the color of polished slate and eyes like chips of ice. "Majesty," Varric boomed, "we received a notification from the bonding archives. Surely this is a localized system error. You cannot possibly be preparing the ritual of truth for this." He gestured to Noah as if Noah were a pile of waste left on the carpet. "It is not an error, Lord Varric," Lysara said, her voice instantly shifting from vulnerable to imperious. "It is a royal decree. This is insanity," another counselor shouted. "He is a human, a primitive. His mind cannot handle the neural load. He will be burned out in minutes. And the optics. To bond a Terran mongrel to the throne? The pure castes will riot." "Let them riot," Lysara said coldly. "It is a security risk," Varric argued, stepping closer. "You invite a wolf into the fold. How do we know he is not a sleeper agent? This bond gives him access to your location, your emotional state. And it gives me access to his truth," Lysara countered, "which is more than I have ever received from this council." Varric stiffened. "That is an unworthy accusation." "Is it?" Lysara stepped forward, her glow flaring bright white, the color of anger. "Where were my guards when the assassin bypassed the sensors? Where were the updated shield codes? Why was a human contractor the only one to react?" Varric fell silent, his jaw working. "I am the queen," Lysara said, her voice echoing off the crystal walls. "My safety is my own prerogative, and I choose him." She turned to Noah. Her eyes asked the question again. "Will you stand with me?" Noah looked at Varric. He saw the sneer, the arrogance, the pure distilled bigotry. It reminded him of every officer who had ever sent a squad to die to cover up a mistake. He looked back at Lysara. "Where do I sign?" Noah said. The ritual chamber was deep beneath the palace, carved into the bedrock of the planet. It was a dark, circular room lit only by floating orbs of soft amber light. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and charged particles. In the center of the room was a shallow pool filled with a shimmering silver fluid, neural fluid, a superconductor for psychic energy. Noah knelt on one side of the pool, His knees popped audibly in the silence. Lysara knelt opposite him, her gown pooling around her. Between them, the fluid rippled, reflecting the starlight from the ceiling. "This will not be pleasant," Lysara warned softly. "The initial connection forces a synchronization of neural pathways. Your brain will try to reject the input. You must not fight it. If you fight, you will suffer an aneurysm." "Great," Noah muttered. "Just relax and let the alien brain Wi-Fi scramble my eggs." "Got it." Lysara reached up and touched her crown. The living nanofibers uncoiled from her hair, extending outward like tendrils of golden smoke. They drifted across the pool, seeking. Noah squeezed his eyes shut. He felt the fibers brush against his temples. They felt like cold fire. "Take a breath," Lysara whispered. Noah inhaled. The world exploded. It wasn't a sound. It was a sensation, and it was like being sucked through a straw. The barrier between self and other dissolved in a violent rush of white noise. He gasped, his back arching. He was falling. But he wasn't Noah. He was small. He was a child. He was sitting on a throne that was too big for him, his feet dangling. He was surrounded by faces that were smiling but cold. "Be perfect, Lysara," they whispered. "Do not cry. Queens do not cry. You are the symbol. You are the stone." Loneliness, a vast, crushing ocean of it. Years of walking through crowds and feeling like a ghost. The weight of the crown pressing down, a physical headache that never went away. The fear, the constant gnawing fear that she was not strong enough, that she was a fraud. Then, the attack, the terror on the plaza, not for herself but for the failure. "If I die, the peace dies." And then, impact, a heavy, warm weight shielding her, the smell of gun oil, safety. Noah cried out, clutching his head. Her memories were flooding him, raw and unfiltered. But the current flowed both ways, and across the pool, Lysara screamed, and she was in the mud. The rain was black with ash when the sky was burning. "Medic! I need a medic!" The scream was Noah's. He was holding a boy, Private Miller, 19 years old, whose chest was gone. The blood was hot on his hands. The smell of cauterized flesh, the dropship ride home, the silence, the empty seats, the survivor's guilt that tasted like bile. The nightmares where the faces of the Vailori soldiers he killed morphed into the faces of his friends. And the shame, the deep, rotting shame that he had survived when better men had died. The belief that he was broken, trash, a weapon with no war left to fight. "Stop!" Noah gasped, trying to pull away. "Hold on!" Lysara's voice echoed in his mind, not his ears. "You must hold on or the feedback will kill us." He felt her mind wrap around his, but instead of recoiling from the horror of his memories, she did something impossible. She embraced them. She took the memory of the dying boy in the mud and she wrapped it in a layer of soft, cool light. She didn't fix it. She couldn't fix it, but she acknowledged it. "I see this." Her mind whispered, "I see your pain. It is real." And Noah, stripped bare, saw her. He saw the girl behind the crown. He saw that she hated the ceremonies. He saw that she loved the sound of rain. He saw that she was terrified of him, and yet she was holding on to him like he was the only solid thing in the universe. The blinding light faded. The rushing noise settled into a low, steady hum in the back of his skull. Noah opened his eyes. He was on his hands and knees, panting. Sweat dripped from his nose into the silver pool, across from him. Lysara was slumped forward, her hair hiding her face. "Noah," she whispered. "I'm here," he rasped. His voice sounded wrecked. He looked up. Lysara raised her head. The change was subtle but earth-shattering. When he looked at her eyes now, he didn't just see the color. He felt the emotion behind them. He felt a thrum of exhaustion, a spark of lingering fear, and a warm, glowing ember of gratitude. And he knew she could feel him. He felt exposed, naked. He had never let anyone see the memories of Eridanus, not his therapists, not his ex-wife, no one. She had seen it all in 10 seconds. He scrambled back, sitting on his heels, wiping his face with a trembling hand. That was... Noah started but couldn't finish. Intense, Lysara supplied, and she looked shaken. Her glow was flickering unevenly, darting between pale blue and flushed rose. I did not know. The war. I read the reports, of course. Casualties. Statistic, but to feel it. She looked at him with a horror and softness that made his chest ache. I am so sorry. Noah, she said. Don't, Noah said, holding up a hand. Don't apologize for the war. You didn't start it. I didn't start it. We just got stuck in the grinder. He stood up. His legs were wobbly, like he'd been at sea for a month. Does it shut off? He asked, tapping his temple. It will fade to a background sense, Lysara said, rising gracefully, like a scent in the air. You will know if I am in danger. You will know if I am lying, and I will know the same of you. She stepped around the pool and stood in front of him. She was close enough that he could feel the radiant heat of her skin. You are the truth keeper now, she said. There are no secrets between us. Noah looked away, unable to hold her gaze. That is what I am afraid of. The briefing room was a shark tank. 2 hours had passed since the ritual. Noah stood behind Lysara's chair, clad in a new set of armor, Royal Guard specifications, matte black with gold trim. It fit better than his old contractor gear, lighter and faster. He felt the hum of the bond in the back of his mind, a steady tether to the woman sitting in front of him. Lord Varric was pacing in front of a holographic display. The forensic analysis is complete, Varric said. His voice clipped. He refused to look at Noah. The assassin's weapon was modified with stealth tech. Yes, but the code key used to bypass the atmospheric shield. That is the concern. Show it, Lysara commanded. The hologram shifted, displaying a complex string of alien glyphs. That code, Varric said, matches the encryption protocols of the Crown engine. The room went deadly silent. Noah felt a spike of cold dread from Lysara. He stepped closer to her chair, his hand resting on the hilt of his new sidearm. What is the Crown engine? Noah asked. Varric glared at him. You are not cleared for... Answer him, Lysara said. Varric sighed, a sound of supreme irritation. The Crown engine is a quantum-state artificial intelligence buried in the planetary core. It amplifies the psychic resonance of the Vailori monarch. It is what allows the Queen to coordinate the defense grid, the weather systems, and the agricultural cycles. It is locked to her genetic and neural signature. If the assassin had codes that matched the engine, Noah said, following the logic, then someone didn't just want to kill the Queen, they wanted to replace her. Lysara nodded slowly. If I die, the engine enters a dormant state until a new heir is confirmed. But if someone has cracked the code, if they can mimic my signature, they could take control of the engine without being crowned. Varric finished. They could rewrite the atmospheric shields. They could weaponize the weather. They could... influence minds, Lysara whispered. The engine amplifies psychic thought. If twisted, it could be a mass hypnosis device. Noah felt the horror rolling off her. It wasn't just fear of death. It was fear of her people being enslaved. Secure the engine chamber, Lysara ordered. Standing up, double the guard. No one enters or leaves the lower levels without a DNA scan. It is already done. Majesty, Varric said. I have dispatched my own personal battalion to reinforce the sector. Noah frowned. He felt a weird blip through the bond. Not from Lysara. It was his own instinct, magnified by her sensitivity. Varric's personal battalion? The briefing ended. Varric and the other advisors filed out, leaving Noah and Lysara alone in the room. Lysara slumped back in her chair, rubbing her temples. Heavy is the head, Noah murmured. She looked up at him. She looked exhausted. Tell me, Truth Keeper, she said softly. Now that we are bonded, now that you cannot lie to me, what do you truly think of me? Noah froze. It was a trap, a loaded question. I think you are in a lot of trouble, he deflected. Not as a queen, she said. As a person. Before today, you saw me on the news. You saw the symbol. What did you think? Noah tried to find a joke. He tried to find a way to dodge, but the bond was humming, and the truth felt like it was burning a hole in his tongue. I thought. He started. He looked at her. Really looked at her. I thought you would be colder, he admitted. I thought you would be a statue made of ice, distant, arrogant. He paused, and then his mouth betrayed him. And I didn't think you would be so terrifyingly gorgeous in person. It is actually distracting. Silence. Noah's eyes widened. He hadn't meant to say the last part out loud. He felt the blood rush to his face, heating his ears. Strike that from the record, he stammered. That was unprofessional. Lysara stared at him. Then, her lips twitched. A sound bubbled up from her throat, a low, musical laugh that sounded like wind chimes. It was the first time he had heard her laugh. It transformed her face, making her look 10 years younger. Terrifyingly gorgeous, she repeated, amused. Is that a human tactical term? It is an assessment of a hazard, Noah muttered, looking at the floor. Lysara stood up and walked over to him. She stopped inches away. I thought you were a brute, she confessed, a mindless instrument of violence. When I saw the reports of your battalion, I hated you. She looked up into his eyes, but I was wrong. You are not a brute. Noah, you are just very loud and surprisingly gentle. The air between them seemed to charge with static. The bond hummed, a warm magnetic pull that drew them together. Noah could feel her heartbeat. He could feel a sudden, tentative flutter of attraction from her, a curiosity about what it would be like to touch him, not with her mind, but with her hands. He swallowed hard. Majesty, I think we are crossing a line here. Perhaps, she whispered, or perhaps we are just erasing it. She leaned in slightly. Suddenly, Noah staggered, and it wasn't romance when it was a siren, and a sharp, discordant shriek tore through his mind. It wasn't a sound, it was a psychic feedback loop. Something is wrong, Noah gasped, clutching his head. Lysara's eyes went wide. She felt it too. The systems, she said, the palace systems, they are screaming. Noah grabbed her arm. We need to move. Now, why? What do you sense? Noah looked down at the floor. He could feel a vibration through the soles of his boots, a deep, rhythmic thumping that was getting faster. Varric sent his battalion to the engine room, Noah said, his voice hard, to secure it. Yes, Lysara said. But Varric hates you, Noah said. I saw it in his eyes. Why would he secure your power? Realization dawned on Lysara's face. Oh no. The floor beneath them bucked. A massive explosion rocked the palace. The shockwave threw them both against the wall. The lights flickered and died, replaced by spinning red emergency strobes. Alarms began to wail. Sector 9 breach, a mechanical voice intoned. Crown engine containment failure. Lockdown initiated. Noah scrambled to his feet, pulling Lysara up with him. It wasn't an attack from the outside. Noah yelled over the sirens. "No," Lysara said, her face pale, her glow extinguished by fear. "The call is coming from inside the house," Noah grimaced, checking his weapon. Varric didn't send his men to guard the engine. He sent them to crack it open. "We have to go," Lysara said, pulling toward the door. "If they take the engine, they take the city." Noah racked the slide of his pistol. "Stay close. Your Majesty," he growled, the soldier taking over. "We are going for a little walk." He kicked the door open, leading her into the smoke-filled corridor, straight into the heart of the coup. The air in the lower corridors tasted of ozone and burnt wiring. Noah moved point, his pulse rifle tucked tight into his shoulder, scanning the strobing red darkness. Behind him, Lysara moved with a grace that even panic couldn't shatter, her hand resting on the shoulder of the young guard from earlier, whose name turned out to be Kale. Two other loyalists brought up the rear, their weapons jittering at every shadow. The palace was screaming. Alarms wailed in a discordant minor key harmony that set Noah's teeth on edge. The walls themselves, usually pristine crystal, were flickering with digital static. Strange. Angular alien glyphs crawled across the surfaces like insects made of light, warning sigils indicating a catastrophic system failure. "Clear right," Noah barked, sweeping a corner. "We are close to the core," Lysara said, her voice tight. "I can feel the engine. It is agitated." The psychic bond between them was a live wire. Noah could feel her dread physically, a cold knot in his stomach that had nothing to do with the tactical situation. She was terrified, not for her life, but for the soul of her city. They reached the heavy blast doors of the Crown engine's outer ring, or rather, what was left of them. The massive doors hadn't been blown open. They had been phased. The metal was warped and fused, as if someone had turned the molecules to liquid and then solidified them again in a chaotic splash. "Phase tunneling," Noah muttered, kneeling to inspect the damage. "That is military-grade tech, restricted. You do not buy this at the corner store." Security drones lay scattered across the floor, their sensor eyes dark, their chassis fused by the same phasing energy. "This clearance level belongs to the inner circle," Lysara whispered. She stepped over a ruined drone, her face pale. "We have to go back," Noah said, standing up and blocking her path. "Majesty, look at this. They have heavy weapons and they are already inside. We have 4 handguns and a prayer. We need to retreat, regroup, and call in the fleet." "No," Lysara said instantly. "If I leave the engine now, I abandon my people to whatever madness Varric is unleashing. I must interface with the core. I can lock him out." Noah felt her stubbornness flare through the bond, hot and unyielding. It clashed with his own protective instinct, creating a psychic friction that made his head pound. "You can't interface if you are dead," Noah argued. "My job is to keep you breathing. That means getting you off this rock." "My job is to be the queen," Lysara shot back. "That means staying on the rock until it crumbles." Before Noah could retort, the warped blast doors groaned. The locking mechanism slammed home with a sound like a thunderclap, sealing the breach. A voice echoed from the ceiling speakers. It wasn't the smooth, courteous voice of the palace AI. It was a distorted chorus of 1,000 overlapping whispers. "Administrative override in progress. Primary user. Lysara locked out, recalibrating for regent access." Lysara staggered, clutching her chest. "They are pushing me out. They are rewriting the genetic keys." Footsteps echoed from the corridor behind them. Noah spun, raising his rifle. It was Counselor Telian. He was a younger member of the court, known for his nervous energy and his constant flattery. He was flanked by 2 personal guards, looking disheveled and frantic. "Majesty!" Telian cried, rushing forward. "Thank the stars! We thought you were in the upper spire. You must come with us. I have a shuttle prepped on the south pad. We have to get you to the bunkers on the moon." Noah lowered his rifle slightly, but he didn't safeguard it. "Telian," Lysara said, relief washing over her face. "You are safe. We must hurry," Telian insisted, his eyes darting around. "The traitors. They have taken the security grid. They will be here any moment. Please, Majesty, for the sake of the Empire." Noah watched the counselor. On the surface, Telian looked like a man on the verge of a panic attack. Sweat beaded on his pale forehead. His hands shook. But Noah felt something else. Through the bond. The emotional signal coming from Telian was wrong. It wasn't the jagged, chaotic static of fear. It was smooth. It was cold. It tasted like anticipation, like a chess player watching an opponent walk into a trap. Noah frowned. The bond hummed, confirming the dissonance. Telian's mouth was saying run, but his heart was saying gotcha. Noah stepped between Lysara and the counselor. "Back off," Noah said flatly. Telian blinked, looking affronted. "Excuse me." "Step aside. Human. I am trying to save the queen." Noah raised the rifle again, aiming it squarely at Telian's chest. "You are not trying to save her," Noah said. "You are trying to box her." "Noah!" Lysara gasped, grabbing his arm. "What are you doing? Telian is a friend." "He is lying," Noah said, his voice hard. "I can feel it. He is not scared." "Lysara, he is excited." Telian's face spasmed. "That is preposterous. The stress has broken your mind. Creature, Majesty, order your pet to stand down. Tell me I am wrong." Noah challenged, stepping closer, the barrel of his rifle inches from Telian's silk robes. "Tell me you don't have a squad waiting at that shuttle pad to put a suppression collar on her. Go ahead. Say it. Let her feel the lie." The hallway went silent. The Vailori guards looked from Noah to Telian, unsure. To accuse a high counselor of treason to his face was unheard of. Telian stared at Noah. The nervous mask slipped. His eyes went flat and dead. "You are an inconvenience," Telian whispered. He reached into his robe. "Drop it," Noah roared. Telian didn't pull a weapon. He pulled a small silver amulet and crushed it in his hand. A distortion field snapped into existence around him, a personal teleportation charm. "Do not think you have won," Telian spat, his voice warping as his body began to dissolve into light. "The engine belongs to the future." He vanished. The 2 guards Telian had brought with him looked at the empty space, then at Noah's rifle, and wisely threw their weapons on the floor, raising their hands. Noah let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He looked at Lysara. She was staring at the spot where Telian had stood. Her face was a mask of betrayal. "He was my cousin," she whispered. "We grew up together." Noah felt her pain wash over him, a sharp, stinging ache of loss. He holstered his rifle and put a hand on her shoulder. He didn't say, "I told you so." He just let the bond carry a silent wave of reassurance. "I am here. I am real." She took a shaky breath and looked at the floor. Telian had dropped something in his haste. Noah picked it up. It was a data key, ruggedized and blackened, looking more like a piece of industrial junk than a royal artifact. "This isn't palace tech," Noah said, turning it over. "This is black market, scavenger tech." Lysara took it. Her eyes narrowed. "It is a navigational transponder. It points to a location in the Undercity, Sector 0. "The slums?" Noah asked. "Why would a high counselor be dealing with the slums?" "Because that is where the signal blocking me is coming from," Lysara realized. They are not hacking the engine from here. They are doing it remotely, bouncing the signal through the Undercity's illegal grid to hide the origin. She looked at the sealed blast doors, then at the key. I cannot breach these doors, she said. But if I can find the transmitter in the Undercity, I can kill the signal. I can stop the override. Majesty, Noah said warningly, you cannot be serious. The Undercity is a cesspool. You are the queen. You glow in the dark, literally. You will last about 5 minutes down there. I have no choice, Lysara said, her voice hardening. Varric has the palace. Telian has the shuttle pads. The only way out is down. But if I am only a symbol... Noah, she interrupted, turning to face him, then they will tear me down. I am tired of being a symbol. I need to be a person who fights back. Noah looked at her. He felt the steel in her resolve. It wasn't the fragile, desperate courage of the bonding ritual. It was the cold, hard determination of a soldier. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Fine, he grumbled. But if we are going to the gutter, you are going to need a better outfit. And for the love of God, dim the lights. The cargo lift smelled of rust and fermented algae. It rattled and groaned as it descended through the layers of Lysithra Prime, leaving the crystalline spires behind and plunging into the smog-choked depths of the Undercity. Noah leaned against the graffiti-scarred wall, adjusting the chest plate of the scavenged armor he had pulled off a dead mercenary in the maintenance bay. It was ugly, scarred, and smelled like old sweat, but it covered his uniform. Lysara sat on a crate opposite him. She looked different. She had taken a metabolic suppressant to dampen her bioluminescence. Her skin, usually opalescent, was now a dull, matte gray. She wore a heavy hooded cloak made of rough synthweave, pulled low to hide her face. Her crown was hidden deep in a pocket of Noah's vest. "How are you doing?" Noah asked. "You look like you are about to throw up." "The suppressant," Lysara murmured, clutching her stomach. "It feels like wearing a heavy blanket over my soul. I feel dim, better dim than dead," Noah said. "Remember the cover story. You are Lyra. You are a mute transport pilot on the run from a debt syndicate. I am your muscle." "I am not mute," she protested. "You are when you open your mouth and sound like a royal proclamation," Noah said. "You have a distinct lack of contractions, Your Majesty. People down here do not say, 'I shall endeavor to assist.' They say, 'Gimme that.' Gimme that." Lysara tested the words. It sounded ridiculous, like a professor trying to rap. Noah snorted. "Okay, stick to the mute thing and try to slouch. You stand like you are expecting a parade." Lysara slumped her shoulders exaggeratedly. "Is this sufficient? Do I look like a criminal?" "You look like a queen trying to look like a criminal," Noah said, grinning. "It is cute, but it will have to do." She glared at him, but he felt a flicker of amusement through the bond. The humor was a relief. It was a small island of normalcy in a sea of chaos. The lift shuddered to a halt. The doors groaned open. "Welcome to the bottom of the food chain," Noah muttered. The Undercity was a sensory assault. Neon signs in a dozen languages flickered through the thick, oily smog. The streets were narrow canyons of rusted metal and repurposed shipping containers, crowded with species from the fringe of the galaxy. Music, heavy, thumping bass shook the puddles of iridescent runoff on the ground. Noah led the way, his hand hovering near his pistol. Lysara stayed close, her hood pulled down. They moved through the crowd. Noah shouldered past a four-armed vendor selling grilled reptile skewers. "Watch it, smooth skin," the vendor hissed in broken Valori. "Eat plasma, Scug face, Noah shot back in the local slang. He felt Lysara wince through the bond. Scug face, she whispered. That is a biological impossibility. It is an idiom, Lyra, Noah whispered back. Just walk. They found the contact point Zira's data key had hinted at, a dive bar called the Glitch. Inside, the air was thick with smoke. Noah scanned the room. In the back booth sat a figure hunched over a holographic deck, fingers flying across a virtual keyboard. That's our guy, Noah said, or girl, or whatever. They approached the booth. The figure looked up. It was a woman, half Valori. She had the pale skin and large eyes of her mother's people, but her hair was a messy human-style mohawk dyed neon pink, and she had cybernetic jacks implanted in her temples. You look like you are lost, tourists, the woman said, her voice raspy. We are looking for information, Noah said, sliding into the booth. Information costs, the woman said, not looking up from her deck. And you two look broke. We have credits, Lysara said. The woman froze. Her head snapped up. She stared at Lysara. Lysara had spoken only 3 words, but the cadence was unmistakable. The perfect diction, the resonance. The woman, Zira, narrowed her eyes. She looked from Lysara to Noah, then back to Lysara. She leaned across the table, sniffing the air. No way, Zira breathed. No freaking way. She looked at Lysara's hooded face. You are shorter in person, Zira whispered, and grayer. What are you on? D-suppressants? That stuff will rot your liver. Who are you? Lysara asked, her voice regaining its imperious edge despite the hood. Zira laughed. It was a sharp, jagged sound. I am Zira, and you are the queen of the spire, slumming it in a hole in the ground. If I yell loud enough, I could probably sell you to the highest bidder for enough credits to buy my own moon. Noah's pistol was under the table, aimed at Zira's stomach. Try it, and you won't live to spend a dime. Zira looked at Noah, then down at the table, then back at him. She grinned. I like him. He is jumpy. She sat back, crossing her arms. Relax, soldier boy. I am not a snitch. I hate the council more than I love money. Varick's tax collectors took my brother's shop last year. If you are here to screw over the highborns, I am in. We are here to stop them, Lysara said. We tracked a signal to this sector. Zira took the data key Noah offered. She slotted it into her deck. Her eyes glazed over as she interfaced with the data. Whoa, she muttered. This is heavy code, military encryption, but sloppy. They are routing it through the bazaar. The bazaar? Noah asked. The memory market, Zira said. Jacking out. Come on. If we want to trace this, we have to go shopping. The memory market was worse than the slums. It was a labyrinth of stalls draped in heavy velvet, lit by sickly yellow lanterns. Here, they didn't sell food or weapons. They sold experiences. Noah walked past a stall where jagged crystals were laid out on velvet cushions. First kiss, the vendor crooned. Authentic human sorrow. The thrill of a skydive. Cheap. Very cheap. Noah felt sick. He knew what those crystals were. Memory shards, extracted from people, sometimes willing, usually not. He saw a stall labeled War Memories. A Valori youth was holding a crystal to his forehead. His eyes rolled back, his body shaking with the adrenaline of a battle he had never fought. This is abominable, Lysara whispered. She stopped at a stall. A group of Valori children, ragged and thin, were huddled in a corner, hooked up to a rusted machine that was pumping glowing blue fluid into their arms. Their eyes were vacant, drool running down their chins. They were smiling, lost in an artificial paradise. What are they doing? Lysara asked, horror in her voice. Bliss feed, Zira said, not stopping. It is a synthetic happiness loop, cheaper than food. Parents plug them in so they don't feel the hunger. Lysara stared at the children. She looked at the squalor, the desperation, the exploitation. I didn't know, she whispered. The council reports. They said the relocation programs were working. They said poverty was down 40%. They lied, Noah said quietly. He stood beside her, watching the kids. It is easy to lie when you live in a tower 5 miles up. Lysara turned to him. Her eyes were wet. I let this happen, she said. I sat on my throne and celebrated peace while my people were rotting. You didn't know, Noah said. It was my job to know, she hissed. Ignorance is not an excuse for a queen. It is a crime. The bond surged with her shame. It was heavy and suffocating. Noah felt it mixed with his own anger at the system, at the unfairness of it all. But he also felt her resolve hardening. It wasn't just about saving the engine anymore. It was about burning this whole corrupt system down. He took her hand. It was a breach of protocol. But she grabbed it back, squeezing hard. Fix it later, Noah said. Survive now. Zira stopped at a heavy steel door guarded by 2 hulking mercenaries with cybernetic arms. Signal is coming from inside, Zira whispered. It is a server vault. Noah scanned the mercs. Heavy plating, kinetic shielding. Plan? Lysara asked. I shoot them, Noah said. Subtle. Zira deadpanned. Can I try something first? Zira pulled a small device from her pocket and tossed it. It skittered across the floor like a rat. Hey! One merc shouted. The device flashed. A pulse of high-frequency noise erupted. The mercs grabbed their heads, screaming as their cybernetic audio receptors overloaded. Now you shoot them, Zira said. Noah moved. He double-tapped the first merc with stun rounds, blue rings of energy that dropped the giant like a sack of rocks. The second merc fumbled for his weapon, blind and deaf. Lysara stepped forward. She didn't use a weapon. She extended her hand, palm out. A ripple of force, precise, controlled, hit the merc in the chest. It didn't crush him, it just threw his equilibrium off. He spun, tripped over his own feet, and slammed his head into the doorframe. Out cold. Nice push, Noah said. I aimed for the inner ear, Lysara said, stepping over the body. Less messy. Zira hacked the door lock in 10 seconds. Access granted. They slipped inside. The vault was freezing. Rows of massive servers hummed in the dark, cooling fans roaring like jet engines. In the center of the room, a terminal was glowing red. That is the transmitter, Zira said, running to it. Cover me. She jacked in. Noah and Lysara took up positions at the door. I am in, Zira muttered. Holy, this isn't just an override. It is a viral upload. What does that mean? Lysara asked. It means they aren't just locking you out, Zira said, typing furiously. They are uploading a new directive to the engine. Project Monarch. It is... Oh God. It is a genetic targeting algorithm. Noah looked at Lysara. Targeting? Zira pulled up a file. A hologram projected into the air. It showed a DNA helix unraveling. If this code executes, Zira explained, voice shaking, it will use the engine to broadcast a command signal. It will target anyone with Royal Valori DNA markers and anyone psychically linked to them. Noah felt a cold chill. Linked. It is a slaver virus, Lysara whispered, horror dawning. It will turn us into puppets. Me, my family, and Noah, Zira added. The bond makes him a proxy. Before they could process it, the door at the far end of the vault hissed open. Contact, Noah yelled. A squad of mercenaries poured in. Professional hit squad, armored and moving fast. Take cover. Noah grabbed Lysara and threw them both behind a bank of servers just as the air filled with plasma fire. Sparks showered down on them. Zira dove under the terminal console. Noah popped up, firing 2 controlled bursts. 1 merc went down. 5 more advancing. "We are pinned," Noah shouted. "Zira, how long? I am scrubbing the virus." Zira yelled back, "Give me a minute." "We don't have a minute." A grenade landed near their cover. "Move!" Noah tackled Lysara again, rolling them into a narrow gap between 2 server racks. The grenade detonated, shredding the metal casing they had been hiding behind. They were pressed tight against the wall, in the dark, the heat of the servers pressing against their backs. Noah's body was shielding hers, his arm braced against the wall by her head. Their faces were inches apart. The firefight roared outside, but in that narrow space, time seemed to warp. Noah looked down at her. Her hood had fallen back. Her eyes were wide, reflecting the strobe of weapon fire. He could feel her heart hammering against his chest, or was that his heart? The bond made it impossible to tell. He felt the adrenaline coursing through her, the fear, the fierce will to live. And beneath that, something else. Desire. It hit him like a physical wave. It wasn't a thought, it was a raw chemical pull. The urge to kiss her, to taste the fear and the life on her lips was sudden and overwhelming. He saw her pupils dilate. She felt it too. She felt his want, mirrored and amplified by her own. She leaned in, just an inch. Her breath ghosted against his chin. "Noah," she whispered. His hand tightened on her waist. He wanted to forget the war, forget the queen, forget the mercenaries trying to kill them. He wanted this. Then Lysara squeezed her eyes shut. She pulled back, pressing her forehead against his chest. "Not here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Not like this. Not in the dark." Noah let out a shuddering breath. He nodded, fighting to regain control of his racing mind. "Right," he croaked. "Not here." He pulled away, turning back to the fight. The soldier clicked back into place. "Zira!" Noah yelled. "Status! Done!" Zira shouted. "Virus purged! But they are locking down the exits. Grab the drive!" Noah ordered. He leaned out and unleashed a suppressing volley, forcing the mercs to duck. "Go! Go! Go!" They scrambled toward a maintenance hatch Zira had popped open. They dove through it, sliding down a disposal chute just as the server room exploded behind them. They landed in a heap in a pile of refuse in a lower alleyway. Noah groaned, checking his limbs, still attached. Lysara sat up, wiping grime from her cheek. She looked at Noah. The moment in the server room hung between them, heavy and unspoken. Zira held up the data drive. "I got it. I got everything." She projected the final file. It was a recording. Varric's voice. "The distraction in the capital is working. The queen is missing. Proceed with phase 2. An image appeared. A map. It is a moon." Noah said, "Carix. The storm moon." "Why there?" Lysara asked. Zira scrolled. "Coronation ceremony. Regent Varric. Date. 72 hours. He is going to crown himself," Lysara realized. "He is using a stolen fragment of the engine. If he performs the rite on Carix, away from the interference of the main core, he becomes the king," Noah finished. "And with that fragment, he can enslave anyone he wants, including us," Lysara said. She looked at Noah. The guilt in her eyes was devastating. "I did this," she whispered. "I bonded you. I made you a target. If Varric activates that fragment, he can use you to get to me, or use me to break you." Noah stood up. He offered her a hand. He didn't hesitate. "Then we stop him," Noah said. "But I have endangered you," she argued. "You should run, break the bond, get off world, and leave you to fight him alone?" Noah shook his head. "Not happening." He pulled her to her feet. "I am your truth keeper, remember?" he said, a grim smile touching his lips. "That means I stick around for the ugly parts." He looked at Zira. "Can you get us a ship?" Zira looked at the data drive, then at the desperate, impossible determination on their faces. She sighed. "I know a guy," she said. "Captain Theron. He owes the Queen a favor, or a life. I forget which." "Call him," Lysara commanded, pulling her hood back up. "We are going to Carrick's." The escape from Lysithra Prime did not look like a royal procession. It looked like a garbage run. The hangar bay and the lower orbital ring smelled of burning hydraulic fluid and cheap coolant. Zira led the way, kicking aside loose cables, while Noah kept a hand on the small of Lysara's back, guiding her through the maze of rusted shipping containers. The Queen was still wearing the rough hooded cloak of a slum dweller, her glowing skin dulled by the suppressant drugs, but she moved with a straight-spined elegance that was impossible to disguise. Captain Theron was waiting by the loading ramp of a freighter that looked like it had been welded together from 3 different wrecks. He was a massive Velori, broad-shouldered and missing the tip of one ear, a mark of the old sky pirate clans. He held a heavy wrench in one hand and looked at the trio with eyes that had seen too much deep space. "You are late," Theron rumbled, his voice like grinding stones. "And you brought a human. I charge double for humans. They smell like dairy and anxiety." "He is not paying," Zira snapped, tossing her pack onto the ramp. "He is security, and the cargo is the one in the hood." Theron looked at Lysara. She lowered her hood just an inch, enough for him to see her violet eyes. The big pilot stiffened. He dropped the wrench. It hit the deck with a metallic clang. He went to one knee, ignoring the grime on the floor. "My life is yours." "Sky Mother," Theron said, his gruffness vanishing into reverence. "Since the Battle of the Nebulae. You pulled my ship from the gravity well when the Council would have left me to burn." "Stand up, Captain," Lysara said softly. "We have no time for knees. Can you get us past the blockade?" Theron stood, grabbing his wrench. "For you? I would fly this rust bucket through a sun. But we have to move. Varick's drones are scanning every ship leaving the dock." They scrambled aboard. The ship, christened the Rusty Starling, groaned as the engines cycled up. Noah strapped himself into a crash couch in the cockpit, watching Theron's hands fly across the manual controls. These weren't the elegant thought interface controls of the palace. These were physical switches and levers, worn smooth by use. "Hold on to your teeth," Theron shouted. The ship lurched. They blasted out of the docking ring, engines flaring a dirty orange. Through the viewport, Noah saw the sleek, predatory shapes of the Royal Guard interceptors patrolling the perimeter. Theron didn't try to outrun them. He dove. The Rusty Starling pitched downward, skimming the very edge of the atmospheric shield, shaking violently as it rode the turbulence between the vacuum and the planet's gravity. The interceptors peeled off, unable to follow the suicidal trajectory. Preparing for fold space jump in 3, 2, 1. The stars outside the viewport didn't just blur, they elongated, stretching into infinite lines of white fire. Reality seemed to ripple like liquid glass. The ship shuddered as it punched a hole through the fabric of normal space, slipping into the slipstream where physics was merely a suggestion. Noah let out a breath, his grip loosening on the armrests. He looked over at Lysara. She was staring out at the swirling vortex of indigo and violet light, her expression unreadable. "We are clear," Theron announced. "Next stop, Carrick's. Try not to break anything in the cargo bay." The journey to the frontier moon took 10 hours. It was a quiet, suspended time, a bubble of calm between 2 storms. Noah found Lysara in the cargo bay, sitting on a crate of machine parts. The lighting here was dim, amber emergency strips casting long shadows. The hum of the fold space drive was a constant, vibrating lullaby that rattled the teeth. She was staring at a data pad, but the screen was dark. "You okay?" Noah asked, stepping into the bay. She looked up, startled. Her metabolic suppressant was wearing off slightly. A faint, pearlescent shimmer was returning to her skin, casting a soft glow against the rusted metal walls. "I am processing," she said. "It is strange. I have ruled this empire for 10 years, yet this is the first time I have been on a freighter. The first time I have seen the stars without a ceremonial viewing filter. It is not as glamorous as the brochures," Noah said, sitting on a crate opposite her. "Smells like old socks and ozone." "It smells like freedom," she countered, a small smile touching her lips. "Or perhaps that is just the socks." Noah laughed. He pulled a ration pack from his pocket. "Theron said we could raid the pantry. I found these Valori field rations." He tossed her a silver packet. She caught it deftly. Spiced nutrient cubes. She read the label, wrinkling her nose, a delicacy for the infantry. Noah opened his own packet and popped a gelatinous orange cube into his mouth. He chewed once, and his eyes watered. He coughed, hacking as a wave of intense chemical heat exploded in his sinuses. "Water," Noah wheezed, pounding his chest. "Why does it taste like battery acid and chili peppers?" Lysara laughed. It was a full, open sound, devoid of royal restraint. "You are supposed to let it dissolve on the tongue," she explained, her eyes dancing with mirth. "If you chew it, you rupture the spice capsules all at once. It is a common prank to play on new recruits." "You could have warned me," Noah rasped, wiping tears from his eyes. "I think I just burned off my taste buds." "Consider it a tactical lesson," she teased. "Never engage an enemy supply without reconnaissance." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the ship humming around them. Noah watched her. The bond between them was settling, becoming less of a chaotic noise and more of a steady background warmth. He could feel her curiosity radiating toward him. "Tell me about Earth," she said suddenly. "What about it?" Noah asked. "It is loud, crowded, mostly water." "I have seen the maps," she said. 70% ocean. It sounds terrifying. "Does the water not crush you?" "Only if you go deep enough," Noah said. "But mostly it just rocks you. I grew up near the coast, the Pacific. The sound of the waves, it is like a heartbeat. You don't have to do anything. You just stand there, and the ocean reminds you that you are small." She tilted her head. "That sounds peaceful." "On Lysithra, the environment is controlled. The weather is scheduled. We do not have wildness. We have plenty of wildness," Noah said. "And mess. Our holidays, for example. We don't have dignified light ceremonies. We have Thanksgiving. You eat until you can't move, argue politics with your uncle, and fall asleep watching sports." "It sounds chaotic," she said. "It is," Noah admitted. "But it is real. You wear your heart on your sleeve. You say what you mean, and then you eat pie." Lysara frowned, looking confused. "You wear your internal organs on your clothing? Is this a ritual of penance?" Noah blinked, then burst out laughing. "No. No," he said, waving his hand. "It is an idiom, a figure of speech. It means you show your emotions openly. You don't hide how you feel." "Oh," she said, her cheeks flushing a darker violet. "I imagined a literal anatomical display. It seemed very unsanitary." They both laughed then, the sound echoing in the empty bay. For a moment, They weren't a queen and a soldier. They were just two travelers sharing a bad meal in the dark. But the laughter faded as the reality of their situation crept back in. Noah looked down at his hands, scarred, rough, capable of violence. I am scared. Lysara, he said quietly. She looked at him, her humor vanishing. Of Varric? No, Noah said. Of me, of this bond. He tapped his temple. Zira said the code in the Crown engine can target people linked to you. If Varric activates that fragment, if he twists the engine. What if I turn? What if I become a weapon again? But this time, pointing at you. I can feel your fear, Lysara said softly. It is cold and sharp. I don't want to hurt you, Noah whispered. I have spent 10 years trying to stop hurting people. If I become a liability, you have to promise me something. No, she said firmly. You have to promise, Noah insisted. If I turn, if my eyes go blank and I raise a gun, you take me down. You don't hesitate. I will not promise that, Lysara said. Her voice was fierce. She stood up and crossed the small space between them, kneeling in front of him so their eyes were level. Why? Noah asked. Because I am terrified too, she confessed. Not of you, but of being alone. She reached out, her fingers hovering near his knee but not touching. All my life, Noah, I have been a symbol, a statue. People love the queen, but they do not know the woman. If I die, they will build a monument, but they will not mourn me. They will mourn the loss of stability. She looked into his eyes, and the bond surged with her vulnerability. You are the first person in 10 years who looked at me and saw a person, she whispered. You challenged me. You laughed at me. You shared your silence with me on if I lose that, if I lose you, then Varric has already won, because he will have stripped away the only part of me that feels alive. Noah looked at her. He felt the truth of her words vibrating in his skull. It wasn't a royal decree, it was a confession. We are in this together. Then, he said, his voice rough, together. She agreed. Until the end. Carix was a nightmare world. As the rusty starling broke through the cloud layer, Noah saw a landscape that looked like it had been chewed up and spat out by the gods. The mountains were jagged spikes of black obsidian tearing at the sky. The plains were gray dust, swept by winds that clocked in at hurricane force. But the sky was the worst part. Because of the moon's unstable magnetic core, the lightning didn't strike down. It arced horizontally. Massive, silent ribbons of blue-white energy lashed across the clouds like cracking whips, illuminating the gloom in strobe light flashes. That is the landing zone. Theron's voice crackled over the comms. The temple of the first spark. It is surrounded by a magnetic storm. I have to put us down in the valley, 5 miles out. The electronics won't survive a closer approach. The ship touched down with a bone-jarring thud. The ramp lowered, and the wind instantly howled into the hold, carrying grit and freezing cold. Zira drove the crawler out of the cargo hold. It was an ancient, 6-wheeled transport that looked like a tank stripped of its gun. Everyone in! Zira yelled over the wind. They piled in. The interior of the crawler was cramped and smelled of grease. Theron took the driver's seat. Noah and Lysara squeezed into the passenger bench behind him. The journey was brutal. The crawler lurched over razor-sharp rocks, its suspension groaning. Outside, the horizontal lightning lit up the landscape in terrifying flashes. We are picking up energy signatures ahead, Zira shouted, looking at a handheld scanner. The temple is active. Varric has fired up the engine fragment. How long until the coronation? Lysara asked, bracing herself as the crawler slammed into a crater. Maybe an hour, Zira said. Once the moons align, the transmission begins. We are not going to make it, Theron growled. The storm is getting worse. The magnetic interference is frying the power core. As if on cue, the crawler lurched and died. The interior lights flickered and went out. The engine whined down into silence. Theron slammed his fist on the dashboard. The intake manifold is fused. We need to bypass the coupling. They were stranded in the middle of a storm-swept plain, miles from nowhere. There is a way station, Theron said, pointing through the windshield, a shelter for pilgrims, about 200 yards east. We can pull the parts we need from the station's generator. We have to move, Noah said. They bailed out of the crawler. The wind hit them like a physical blow. Noah grabbed Lysara's arm, shielding her face from the stinging sand. They fought their way through the gale, the lightning cracking overhead like artillery fire. They reached the way station, a low, bunker-like structure made of heavy stone. Theron forced the rusted door open, and they stumbled inside. It was dark and freezing. The air inside was stale, preserving the chill of the storm. Zira, Theron, get the parts for the crawler, Noah ordered, shouting to be heard over the wind howling outside. I will secure the perimeter. We are on it, Zira said. Theron and Zira disappeared into the back of the station where the generator room was located, their flashlights cutting through the gloom. Noah led Lysara into a smaller side room, pushing the heavy door shut to muffle the roar of the wind. The room was small, barely a cell, with a single stone bench and a sputtering thermal unit on the wall that was putting out about as much heat as a candle. Noah checked his weapon, then turned to Lysara. She was shivering. Violent, uncontrollable shivers. Her metabolic suppressant had fully worn off. But instead of glowing brightly, her skin was dimming to a dull, sickly gray. The cold, Noah realized. Valori were reptilian in their ancestry. They couldn't regulate their body heat as well as humans. Majesty, Noah said, stepping closer. You are hypothermic. I am fine, she stammered, her teeth chattering. Just a little. Brisk. You are turning gray, Noah said. Sit down. He guided her to the stone bench. He reached into his pack and pulled out an emergency thermal cloak, a thin sheet of reflective mylar. He wrapped it around her shoulders. It wasn't enough. She was still shaking, her breath coming in white puffs in the freezing air. Noah cursed under his breath. He sat down next to her. Come here, he said. He didn't wait for permission. He pulled her against him, wrapping the cloak around both of them. He was wearing his undersuit beneath his armor, which retained heat, and his human metabolism was running hot from the exertion. Lysara stiffened for a second, then slumped against him, burrowing into his warmth. Better? Noah asked, rubbing her arms through the cloak to generate friction. She nodded against his chest. Yes, thank you. They sat there in the dark, the red light of the dying thermal unit flickering on the walls. The storm raged outside, but inside it was quiet. Too quiet. Through the bond, Noah could feel her heart racing. It wasn't from the cold anymore. It was a nervous, fluttering rhythm. He felt her awareness of him, of his arm around her, of his thigh pressed against hers. And he felt his own reaction. He tried to clamp down on it. He was a soldier. She was a queen. He was the bodyguard. She was the asset. But the bond didn't care about regulations. He looked down at her. She looked up. Her eyes were wide, the violet irises swirling with emotion. Noah, she whispered. He should have looked away. He should have made a joke. He should have checked his weapon. Instead, he held her gaze. I shouldn't be doing this, Noah said, his voice straining with the effort of holding back. I am your subordinate. Is that what you feel? she asked softly. Duty? No, Noah admitted. That is not what I feel. What do you feel? Noah closed his eyes. The bond betrayed him. He couldn't lie. I feel like I want to keep holding you, he whispered. I feel like I have been cold for 10 years, and you are the first fire I have found. Lysara let out a shaky breath. She felt his longing washing over her. It was intense, raw, and undeniably sexual. But it was wrapped in a profound layer of respect. He wanted her, but he would never take her. He would freeze to death on this bench before he crossed a line she didn't want crossed. That restraint moved her more than any grand gesture. She reached up, her hand trembling slightly, and cupped his face. Her thumb brushed the scar on his jaw. Under her touch, her skin began to warm. The gray faded, replaced by a soft, intimate rose gold glow that lit up the small room. You saved my life, Noah, she whispered. You saved my city. You saved my sanity. I was doing my job, he murmured, leaning into her touch despite himself. Stop, she said gently. Stop being a soldier for one moment. She moved closer, her body pressing against his. I want a reward. Noah, he froze. What? I said I want a reward, she repeated, her voice gaining strength. You said you saved the queen and she did the unexpected. Well, do not let me be a liar. She traced the line of his lips with her thumb. I want one moment, she whispered. One moment where I am not a queen, where I am not a symbol, where I am just a woman, and I am choosing a man. Noah's heart hammered against his ribs. Lysara, he warned, his voice breaking, the power dynamic. It is not right. You are vulnerable. You are scared. Power is not just what we hold. Noah, she interrupted, it is what we release. She looked deep into his eyes, her gaze clear and steady. I am not commanding you, truth keeper. I am asking. The bond flared. He felt her truth. There was no coercion here, no royal command, just a simple, naked desire to be close to someone who saw her. Noah let out a long, ragged breath. He stopped fighting. Okay, he whispered. He leaned in. The kiss was cautious at first, a question, a test of the waters. Her lips were cool, but her mouth was warm. She tasted of the spiced nutrient cube and electricity. Then, the caution snapped. She made a small sound in her throat and pressed closer, her hands tangling in his hair. Noah groaned and wrapped his arms around her, pulling her tight against him. The bond exploded. It wasn't just physical. As their bodies pressed together, their minds merged in a way that was terrifying and beautiful. Noah felt her loneliness dissolving. It felt like a dam breaking, a rush of warm water washing away years of silt and stone. He felt her relief, her joy, her overwhelming need to be touched, to be held, to be known. And she felt him. She felt the armor around his heart shattering. She felt his self-hatred softening, melting under the heat of her acceptance. She felt his adoration for her, not as a queen, but as this fierce, brave, terrifying creature in his arms. Clothes became an obstacle. The thermal cloak was pushed aside, in the flickering red light of the way station, amidst the howling of the storm. They came together. It wasn't a frantic coupling. It was a conversation. Every touch was amplified by the psychic link. When his hand grazed her skin, he felt her shiver in his own mind. When she kissed his neck, the sensation echoed through his entire nervous system. It was overwhelming. It was too much. It was perfect. They moved together on the narrow stone bench, the storm outside forgotten. The only thing that existed was the warmth of their skin, the whisper of their names, and the blinding, radiant light of two souls finally finding a place to rest. Later, The storm was still raging, but the wind had dropped to a lower morning howl. They lay tangled together under the thermal cloak, limbs heavy and relaxed. The air in the room was still cold, but under the mylar, it was a cocoon of warmth. Noah lay on his back, one arm draped over his eyes, the other around Lysara. She was curled against his side, her head resting on his chest. Her skin was glowing with a soft, steady pulse, a deep, contented violet. Noah traced the bioluminescent patterns on her arm with his fingertips. "You are glowing," he murmured. "You are loud," she countered sleepily, her ear pressed to his chest. "Your heart. It sounds like a drum." Noah smiled. He felt light. For the first time in a decade, the weight on his shoulders was gone. "You know," he said, staring up at the dark ceiling. "Humans are usually considered too fragile for this kind of thing. The psychic load. It is supposed to burn us out." "You are not fragile," Lysara said, kissing his chest. "You are surprisingly durable." She propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at him. Her hair fell around them like a silver curtain. "This changes things," she said. Her voice was serious now. "I know," Noah said. "I can't go back to being just a guard. And you can't go back to being just a statue." "No," she agreed. She took his hand, interlacing their fingers. "When we get back, if we survive this, I am going to make a declaration." Noah raised an eyebrow. "What kind of declaration?" "I am going to name you my consort," she said. Noah choked. He coughed, sitting up slightly. "Your what?" "My consort," she repeated calmly. "My partner. In the open. Before the council. Before the empire." "Lysara," Noah said, his eyes wide. "That is political suicide. A human consort? The purists will lose their minds. The tabloids will explode. Let them," she said with a shrug. "I am done ruling by their rules. The old ways gave us isolation and rot. Perhaps it is time for something new." She looked at him, searching his face. "Unless you do not want it, unless you want to walk away." Noah looked at her. He thought about the ridicule, the danger, the sheer absurdity of a washed-up Marine standing next to the Queen of the Spire. He squeezed her hand. "I am not walking away," he said. "I told you, I am your truth keeper. And my consort?" She pressed. Noah smirked. "I guess I will have to get a better suit and learn how to bow without cracking my knees." She smiled, a radiant, blinding thing. "We can work on the knees," she promised. A loud banging on the door made them both jump. "Hey, lovebirds!" Zira's voice muffled through the heavy steel. "The crawler is fixed. We are burning daylight, or whatever passes for it on this godforsaken rock." Noah and Lysara looked at each other. The bubble was popped. The war was waiting, but it was different now. They weren't facing it alone. "Duty calls," Noah said, sitting up and reaching for his armor. "Let it call," Lysara said, pulling her rough cloak back on, covering her glow. "We are ready to answer." They drove the final miles in silence, but the air in the crawler was charged. Zira cast a few knowing glances at them in the rearview mirror, but, for once, kept her mouth shut. Theron was focused on the terrain, fighting the controls as the wind tried to flip the transport. The temple of the first spark appeared out of the gloom like a jagged tooth. It was a massive structure carved directly into the obsidian mountain. Ancient banners, red and black, the colors of the traitor faction, hung from the ramparts, whipping violently in the storm. Stealth drones buzzed around the peaks like angry hornets. But the centerpiece was the spire. In the courtyard of the temple stood a dark, metallic tower that hadn't been there a week ago. It was humming with a low, bone-shaking frequency. Purple lightning arced from its tip, connecting to the storm clouds above. "The stolen crown engine fragment," Lysara whispered, staring through the windshield. "It is active." Noah checked his weapon. He felt the familiar weight of the rifle, but his hands were steady. He reached out and touched Lysara's shoulder. Through the bond, he sent a single clear thought. "I am with you." She looked back at him, her eyes fierce. "And I with you." Below them, in the temple courtyard, an army of mercenaries stood in formation. And at the base of the dark spire, surrounded by a glowing field of stolen power, Counselor Varric waited to crown himself king. "Time to crash a party," Noah said. Theron gunned the engine. The crawler surged over the ridge, descending into the Valley of Death. The maintenance tunnels beneath the Temple of the First Spark were a claustrophobic nightmare of dripping stone and humming cables. Noah moved in a crouch, his boots splashing silently in the runoff, his rifle tracking the corners. The temple above them was a perversion of history. The ancient obsidian walls, carved with the creation myths of the Vailori people, had been gouged open to accommodate thick bundles of glowing fiber optics. It was like seeing a cathedral wired like a server farm. Zira walked a few steps behind Noah, her fingers dancing on a holographic gauntlet. "Camera loop active," she whispered. "We are invisible to the sensors, but the drone patrols are random. I can't predict them. I can only scramble them if they get close." Theron brought up the rear, checking a heavy demolition charge. "Just give me a target," he grunted. "I will blow this whole mountain into orbit. No explosives near the spire," Lysara ordered. Her voice was strained. She was walking with one hand on the damp wall, her eyes unfocused. "The engine fragment. I can feel it. It is like a heartbeat, a sick, irregular heartbeat." Through the bond, Noah felt what she was feeling. It wasn't just a machine, it was a consciousness. The stolen piece of the crown engine was awake, and it was angry. It clawed at the edges of their minds, whispering promises of power, of order, of total submission. "Surrender." "Lysara," the voice hissed in Noah's head, echoing from hers. "Kneel, and the pain stops. Kneel, and we will make the galaxy quiet." Noah gritted his teeth, pushing the voice away. "Focus," he told her through the link. "It is just a broadcast. Don't listen to the static." They reached a junction point. A rusted ladder led up to a grate, light spilling through the slats. "This is it," Zira said, checking her map. "This leads to the sub-levels beneath the main altar. The power conduits are to the east. The landing pads are west." Theron racked the slide of his heavy scattergun. "I will take the pads. If Varric tries to run, he will find his engines missing." Zira tapped her gauntlet. "I am going for the power. I will try to overload the grid when you give the signal." Noah looked at them. "Good luck." Theron nodded. "Give him hell." "Majesty." The big pilot and the hacker vanished down the side tunnels. Noah and Lysara were alone. He looked at her. She was pale, the strain of resisting the engine's call evident in the tightness of her jaw. She had discarded the rough cloak, revealing her torn blue gown and the simple, functional armor vest Noah had scavenged for her. She didn't look like a queen in a painting. She looked like a queen at war. "Ready?" Noah asked. "As I will ever be," she said. He pushed the grate open. The main chamber of the temple was a spectacle of stolen grandeur. Floating platforms circled a central dais, suspended by anti-gravity fields. On the platform stood the Vailori nobility, dukes, generals, high priests, hundreds of them, watching in silence. Some looked terrified, their eyes darting to the armed mercenaries lining the walls. Others looked smug, complicit in the treason. At the center, On the highest platform stood a dark metallic spire. It pulsed with a sickly violet light. Cables ran from its base into the back of a throne where Lord Varric sat. Varric wore robes of black and gold. He looked regal, but his eyes were manic. He was speaking, his voice amplified by the spire so that it boomed like thunder. For too long. "We have been weak," Varric shouted. "For 10 years. We have bowed to the humans who burned our worlds. We have let a soft queen dilute our blood with treaties and compromise." The crowd murmured. Varric stood up, raising a hand toward the spire. "But tonight, we return to strength. Tonight, the engine wakes for a true ruler, a regent who will purify our destiny." Noah and Lysara were climbing the maintenance stairs behind the main platform. The noise of the speech covered their footsteps. Noah paused on a landing. He checked his power cell. Full charge. Suddenly, he gasped. A spike of agony drove into his skull. It wasn't pain. It was code. The engine fragment had found him. It had sensed the open door of the psychic bond and slammed into his mind like a battering ram. Target acquired. Anomaly detected. Human interface. Noah's vision white-outed. He wasn't on the stairs anymore. He was in a void. And he saw himself. He saw himself raising his rifle. He saw the crosshairs settling on Lysara's back. "Execute," the voice commanded. "Remove the weakness." Noah's hand moved. In the real world, his rifle swung up. His finger tightened on the trigger. "No!" he screamed inside his own head. He dropped the rifle. It clattered on the stone. He fell to his knees, clutching his head, hyperventilating. The Noah! Lysara was beside him instantly. She grabbed his shoulders. "Get away from me!" Noah gasped, squeezing his eyes shut. "It is in my head. It wants me to kill you." He tried to push her away, terrified that his hands would betray him, that he would snap her neck before he could stop himself. Lysara didn't pull back. She pulled him closer. "Look at me," she commanded. She slammed her forehead against his. The impact was physical, but the connection was metaphysical. She didn't block the engine's signal. She dove into it with him. "We are not separate." She projected into his mind. "It cannot command you because you are not just you anymore. You are us." She flooded the bond with memories, not of war or politics, but of the way station, the warmth of the thermal cloak, the sound of his heart, the absolute unshakable trust she had placed in him. "The bond is not a chain," she whispered fiercely in the dark of his mind. "It is a bridge. Cross it to me." Noah latched onto her voice. He used her strength as an anchor. He fought back against the cold, mathematical hate of the AI. He poured his own defiance, his own love, into the link. The white vision shattered. Noah gasped, coming back to reality. He was on his knees, sweating, Lysara's hands gripping his face. "Back?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Back," he wheezed. He picked up his rifle. His hands were steady again. "Let's go finish this," he said. Varric was nearing the climax of the ritual. "I claim this throne," he bellowed. "I claim the power of the first spark. Let the galaxy know that the Vailori kneel to no one." He reached out to touch the control interface of the spire. "If you claim to act for our people," a voice rang out, clear and cutting as a diamond, "then do so in truth, not in stolen shadows." Varric froze. The crowd turned. Lysara stood at the edge of the platform. She had pulled back her hood. Her hair spilled loose, her skin glowing with a blinding, defiant light. She wore no crown, but she had never looked more like a queen. Noah stood at her right hand, his rifle leveled at Varric's chest. "Lysara?" Varric stammered. You are dead. You are missing. I am right here." "Varric," she said, her voice amplified by her own psychic resonance. "And I see you." She pointed at him. I see the treaties you signed with the arms dealers in the Outer Rim. I see the bribes you took to starve the Undercity. I see the code you stole to enslave your own kin. Lies, Varric shrieked. She is corrupted. Look, she brings a human to the sacred ground, a mongrel. Zira! Noah barked into his comms. Now! Above the platform, the massive holographic projectors that were meant to display Varric's coronation banner flickered. The image changed. It showed a recording. Varric, sitting in a dark room, shaking hands with a human smuggler. The queen is soft. The recording played, Varric's voice echoing across the temple. Help me take the throne, and I will give you the mining rights to the moons. The crowd gasped. The Valori nobles looked at the hologram, then at Varric. The betrayal was absolute. He wasn't a patriot. He was selling them out. Kill them! Varric screamed to his mercenaries. Kill them all. But the mercenaries hesitated. The nobles were watching. The queen was standing tall. Varric snarled, Fine. If you will not serve, you will kneel. He slammed both hands onto the spire's interface. Protocol Monarch, override. The spire pulsed. A shockwave of violet energy exploded outward. It wasn't a physical blast. It was a psychic tsunami. Every Valori in the room grabbed their heads and screamed. The nobles fell to the floor, writhing. The guards dropped their weapons. The code in the spire was latching onto their genetic markers, drilling into their brains, forcing their wills to shut down. Kneel. Varric laughed, his eyes glowing with the spire's madness. Lysara staggered. She fell to one knee, clutching her chest. It is too strong, she gasped. He is using the engine to crush them. She looked up at Varric. He was winning. He was brute-forcing the minds of everyone in the room. Noah looked at her. He felt her pain. He felt the spire trying to break her, trying to force her to bow. If she broke, the empire broke. Noah made a choice. He didn't think about it. He just moved. He stepped in front of her. He dropped his rifle and grabbed her hand. What are you doing? She cried. I am the truth keeper, Noah said. I am the shield. He opened his mind. He didn't block the bond. He reversed it. He reached out and grabbed the full weight of the psychic attack that was hitting her, and he pulled it into himself. No! Lysara screamed. It hit him like a freight train made of molten lead. Noah screamed, his back arched. The pain was beyond anything he had ever felt. It was his nervous system being set on fire. He saw the code. It was a billion jagged knives. It was trying to find a Valori mind to enslave, but it found a human chaos instead. Error. The AI screeched in his head. Incompatible architecture. Noah laughed through the blood in his mouth. Incompatible. You son of a... He held on. He became the lightning rod. He drew the spire's power away from Lysara, away from the nobles, and grounded it into his own stubborn, broken human brain. He saw flashes. Not his life, everyone's life. He saw a Valori mother crying. He saw a soldier dying in the mud. He saw Varric's greed. He saw Lysara's lonely childhood. He was burning up. His nose was bleeding. His eyes were red. Overloaded, Noah rasped, looking back at Lysara. His vision was tunneling. I will hold it. You hit it. Burn it out through me. Noah, no. Lysara was weeping. It will kill you. Your mind cannot take this. It is the only good use for a broken soldier like me. Noah gritted out, Do it, Lysara, do it, or we all lose. He was offering himself, then he was ready to be the fuse that blew the bomb. Lysara looked at him. She saw his love. She saw his sacrifice. And she refused it. I will not! She screamed. She stood up. She didn't pull away. She grabbed his face with both hands. We survive together. Or we fall together, she shouted, her voice shaking the stones. I will not reward you with death. She didn't push power at him. She poured power into him. She joined him in the fire. She took his human resilience, his stubbornness, and she welded it to her Valori psychic might. She created a feedback loop, a circuit of two souls that was stronger than the machine. Together, they grabbed the spire's signal. Refuse. They commanded in unison. The spire shrieked. The metal casing began to glow cherry red. The violet light turned to a blinding white. Varric, still connected to the interface, screamed as his console exploded. The spire cracked. A fissure of light ran up its side. "Zira! Now!" Noah yelled, his voice a wreck. In the sub-basement, Zira slammed the enter key. "Eat static, you ugly metal stick." The power grid shorted. The spire detonated. It wasn't a nuclear blast. It was a release of pressure. The spire shattered into a million glowing shards. The psychic weight in the room vanished instantly. Varric was thrown backward by the force of the explosion. He flew off the platform, flailing, and crashed onto the stone floor below with a sickening thud. He didn't move. Silence fell over the temple. The dust settled. Noah swayed. He felt light, empty. He looked at Lysara. She was still holding him, her eyes wide, tears tracking through the dust on her face. "We did it?" Noah whispered. Then his legs gave out. He collapsed. Lysara caught him, lowering him gently to the platform floor. Varric stirred, broken, bleeding, half mad. The traitor pulled a hidden pistol from his robes. He looked up at the platform. He saw the queen. For the purity. Varric gargled. He raised the gun. Noah saw the movement. His body was numb. His brain was fried. He couldn't lift his arm. He couldn't speak. But he could move, just one last time. As Varric fired, Noah rolled. He threw his body over Lysara. The plasma bolt hit him in the backplate. It burned through the scavenged armor. It seared into flesh. Noah grunted, a sharp, surprised sound. Lysara screamed. It was a sound that shattered the remaining windows of the temple. It was a scream of pure psychic anguish. She spun around, her hand extending. A blast of telekinetic force hit Varric. It didn't just push him, it smashed him. It threw him across the room over the edge of the deep ceremonial pit. He fell into the darkness without a sound. Lysara didn't watch him fall. She was already turning back to Noah. "Noah! Noah! Stay with me!" She ripped off his helmet. His face was gray. Blood, red, human blood was pooling under him, staining her blue ceremonial robes. Noah blinked. The ceiling was spinning. He felt cold. "Hey," he whispered. The bond was faint, a flickering candle in the wind. "Do not speak," Lysara sobbed, pressing her hands over the wound in his back. "Help! Medic! I need a medic!" The nobles were rising, dazed. They stared at the platform. They saw their queen cradling a human, weeping over him like he was the most precious thing in the universe. Noah reached up. His hand was shaking. He touched her cheek. She was glowing again, a frantic, terrified pulse of white and blue. "I saved the alien queen." Noah wheezed. A bubble of blood formed on his lips. "From assassins." "Hush, please," Lysara begged, rocking him. And she did. The unexpected. Noah continued, his eyes drifting shut. She made me want to live again." His hand dropped. "No!" Lysara screamed. She didn't let him go. She grabbed his mind through the bond. "Stay. You do not have permission to leave. That is a royal order. Noah Reyes, stay." She poured her own life force into him. She didn't care about the cost. She didn't care about the physics. She simply refused to let his light go out. Medical teams, loyalists who had rushed in with the second wave, swarmed the platform. "Get him to the stasis pod," a medic shouted. They pulled Noah from her arms. Lysara stood up. Her dress was soaked in his blood. Her hands were red. She looked at the crowd. She looked at the nobles who had watched Varric almost enslave them. She looked at the mercenaries who were throwing down their weapons in terror. She stood tall. She didn't wipe the blood away. "This man," she announced, her voice trembling with rage and grief, but projecting to every corner of the hall, "is not a mongrel. He is the savior of the Vailori people." She took a breath. "He is my truth keeper. He is my consort. And if he dies, there will be no mercy for those who aided in this treason." The silence was absolute. "Get him to the ship," Lysara commanded, turning to follow the stretcher. "We are going home." The flight back to Lysithra Prime was a blur. Noah was in a medical coma. Zira and Theron piloted the ship, their faces grim. Lysara sat by the stasis pod, her hand pressed against the glass. She could feel him, faintly. He was drifting in a gray fog, hovering on the edge of the void. "Come back," she whispered into the bond, over and over. "Come back to me." The political world was reeling. The broadcast from the temple, the explosion, the betrayal, the Queen's declaration had gone out live to the entire empire. The narrative had shattered. The human was not a villain. He was a martyr. He had stepped in front of a mind control beam to save alien nobles who despised him. Lysara didn't care about the narrative. She cared about the heartbeat on the monitor. 3 days later, the Royal Medical Wing. The room smelled of antiseptic and lilacs. Noah opened his eyes. He blinked. The light was soft. The ceiling was familiar. Crystal. He tried to move. His back felt like it had been kicked by a mule. But the sharp, searing pain was gone, replaced by a dull ache. He groaned. "Noah?" He turned his head. Lysara was sitting in a chair by the bed. She looked tired. There were dark circles under her eyes. She was wearing a simple white robe. "Hey," Noah croaked. His throat was dry. She stood up. She touched his face, checking he was real. "You are awake," she whispered. "I think so," Noah said. "Or this is a very boring afterlife." She let out a sob, half laugh, half cry, and leaned down, kissing his forehead. "You idiot," she murmured against his skin. "You absolute stubborn idiot. You overloaded your neural pathways, on you took a plasma bolt to the spine, on you died. Noah, you flatlined for 2 minutes on the transport. Did I?" Noah frowned. "I don't remember a tunnel. Just you calling me back. You are never allowed to do that again," she said, pulling back to look at him. "That is a command. Yes, Majesty." Noah smiled weakly. He looked around. "Did we win?" "We won," Lysara said. "Varric is dead. The fragment is destroyed. The council is being purged." "And the people?" Noah asked. "Do they still want to burn me at the stake?" Lysara smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was genuine. "Some do," she admitted. "But most, they are confused. They saw what you did. It is hard to call someone a monster when he bleeds for you." She poured him a glass of water. "There is something else," she said, handing him the glass. "What?" "I made an announcement," she said. "While you were bleeding out on the floor, I may have locked us in." Noah paused, the glass halfway to his lips. "Locked us in? I declared you my consort," she said, publicly, irrevocably. Noah choked on the water. He coughed, wincing as his back spasmed. "You did what?" "I told them you were my partner," she said calmly. "It is done. The papers are filed. The news feeds are running 24-hour specials on your life story. Apparently, you were a very cute baby." Noah stared at her. He felt a mix of terror and hilarity bubbling up in his chest. "So, I am the Queen's boyfriend? Official title? Consort," she corrected. "It sounds more dignified." And does this position come with hazard pay? Noah asked. Because I feel like I have earned a raise. Lysara laughed. She took his hand, lacing her fingers with his. We can discuss your salary later, she said softly. For now, just rest. She sat on the edge of the bed. Noah looked at her. He felt the bond humming between them, clear, strong, unbroken. He felt her love, warm and steady as the sun. He squeezed her hand. I am not going anywhere. He promised. Good, she said, because we have a lot of work to do. Waking up felt less like surfacing from a deep pool and more like being knitted back together, one molecule at a time. Noah Reyes opened his eyes. The light was soft, a diffuse watery gold that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. He tried to take a breath and found that the air tasted sweet, like mint and heavily oxygenated rain. He wasn't in a hospital bed. He was suspended in a cradle of translucent, gel-filled webbing. Around him, machines that looked more like large, glowing orchids than medical equipment pulsed with a rhythmic, biological thrum. A tendril of soft light was wrapped gently around his chest, right where the plasma bolt had burned through his armor. He panicked for a split second, the soldier's reflex to fight the restraint kicking in. Peace, a voice whispered in the back of his mind. You are safe. I am here. The panic evaporated instantly, replaced by a profound sense of calm. The psychic bond with Lysara wasn't the jagged, high-voltage wire it had been during the battle at the temple. It was a steady, low-frequency hum, like the purr of a large cat sleeping on his chest. It felt stable. It felt permanent. Noah turned his head. Queen Lysara was sitting in a floating chair beside the bio-cradle. She was wearing a simple robe of white silk, her feet bare. Her hair was tied back loosely, and her face was scrubbed clean of ceremonial paint. She looked exhausted. There were dark smudges under her violet eyes, but beneath the fatigue, she was radiant. Her skin glowed with a soft, steady warmth that lit up the corner of the room. Hey, Noah rasped. His voice sounded like he had swallowed a bag of gravel. Hey yourself, Lysara replied, a small smile touching her lips. You have been asleep for 4 days. 4 days? Noah tried to sit up, but the gel webbing held him firm. That is a long nap. Did I miss anything? Just the end of the world, she said, standing up and floating closer. Or rather, the prevention of it. She placed her hand on the side of the cradle. The bioorganic machine responded to her touch, the webbing loosening slightly to allow him to move his arms. Varric, Noah asked, the name tasting like ash. Dead, Lysara said quietly. The fall into the ceremonial pit, there was nothing to recover. And the engine? Scrubbed, she said. Her expression hardened slightly, the queen peeking through the exhausted woman. Zira and the palace tech priests have spent the last 90 hours auditing the code. The fragment Varric used is dust. The main core has been lobotomized. It can no longer interface with the higher cognitive functions of the populace. It runs the weather and the traffic. Nothing more. Noah let out a long breath, his head falling back against the gel. So, we actually pulled it off. We did, Lysara said. She reached into the cradle and took his hand. Her touch was cool, but the warmth that flooded through the bond was intense. The people know, Noah, she said softly. The broadcast from the temple went out live. They saw Varric try to enslave them. They saw you step in front of the beam. Noah winced. Yeah, I bet that looked heroic. Just a human screaming his head off and bleeding on the floor. It looked like sacrifice. Lysara corrected him. There were riots in the streets. Noah, but not against us. Against the trader houses, Thousands of citizens surrounded the palace, not to siege it, but to protect it while we flew back. They were chanting your name. Noah stared at the ceiling. That is weird. I am used to people throwing rocks, not flowers. Get used to the flowers, she said, squeezing his hand. You earned them. She tapped a panel on the side of the cradle, and the gel began to recede, draining away into the floor. Now, she said, her tone shifting to a mock-serious register. We have a crisis of a different sort. Noah stiffened. What? Assassins? Beverages, she said. She walked over to a small table and picked up a steaming cup. My palace chemists have been working around the clock, she explained, bringing the cup to him. Apparently, my consort keeps demanding a specific earth-based stimulant, but the chemical structure of caffeine is technically a Class 3 neurotoxin to Valori physiology. She handed him the cup. They have synthesized a human-safe analog. They assure me it is adequately bitter. Noah took the cup. He sniffed it. It smelled like roasted nuts and burnt sugar. He took a sip. It was thick, strong, and hit his system with a familiar jolt. It is not Starbucks. Noah sighed contentedly, closing his eyes. But it is the best thing I have ever tasted. Remind me to give your chemists a medal. I will put it on the list, she said, watching him drink with a look of tender amusement. The next week was a blur of recovery and revolution. Noah was moved from the medical wing to the royal apartments, specifically to a suite connected directly to Lysara's. He spent his mornings in physical therapy, relearning how to walk without a limp as the biographs on his spine knitted into his nervous system. While he healed, Lysara rewrote the laws of the empire. She didn't do it quietly. She summoned the High Council, now missing a third of its members who were awaiting trial for treason, and laid a document on the obsidian table. The Charter of Cognitive Rights, she announced. Noah stood behind her chair, wearing his new uniform, a black jacket with no rank insignia, just the royal crest in silver. He watched the counselors read the document. Clause 1, Lysara stated, her voice echoing in the chamber. The mind is a sovereign territory. No ruler, no artificial intelligence, and no technological device may override, coerce, or influence the free will of a sentient being. Majesty, a surviving conservative counselor stammered. This forbids the use of the harmony grid. It forbids the psychic dampeners we use for riot control. It undermines the very foundation of Valori order. The foundation was rotten, Lysara countered, leaning forward. Order purchased with slavery is not order. It is a prison. We are tearing down the walls. Counselor, if we cannot rule by consent, we do not deserve to rule at all. She looked back at Noah. He gave her a small nod. Keep going. And Clause 2, she continued. The Cross-Species Protection Act. From this day forward, humans on Lysithra Prime are granted full citizenship rights. Labor contracts will be audited. Violence against off-worlders will be prosecuted as a hate crime. The room erupted in mutters. We cannot just elevate them, the counselor protested. They are structurally different. They are people, Lysara said, her eyes flashing violet. And one of them bled to save your life when Varric tried to turn you into a puppet. Do you deny this? The counselor looked at Noah. He looked at the scar on Noah's jaw, the stiff way he held his back. The counselor swallowed hard and looked down. I do not deny it, Majesty. Then sign the charter, Lysara commanded, or resign your seat. One by one. They signed, but paper laws were one thing. The streets were another. Late one night, Noah found Lysara in the small study off their bedroom. She was scrolling through a holographic news feed, her glow dimmed to a troubled gray. Don't read the comments, Noah said, leaning against the doorframe. Rule number 1 of the internet: never read the comments. They are creative, Lysara murmured. Noah walked over and looked at the screen. It was a forum for Valori traditionalists. The queen has been corrupted. The human is a parasite, a pet. She has polluted the royal bloodline. Noah snorted. Hey, look at this one. The human looks like a shaved primate with anxiety. He laughed. I mean, they are not wrong. I do have anxiety. Lysara didn't laugh. She looked up at him, pain swimming in her eyes. They call you a traitor, too, she said, swiping to a human newsfeed. Noah looked. Turncoat, alien lover, collaborator. Noah shrugged. I have been called worse by my own commanding officers. It is just noise. Lysara, is it? She asked. We are breaking thousands of years of tradition. Half the galaxy thinks we are a Romeo and Juliet tragedy waiting to happen, and the other half thinks we are a political abomination. Noah sat on the arm of her chair. He reached out and took her hand. You know what I see? He asked. What? I see that we are the galaxy's favorite scandal, he said, grinning. We are trending on 12 systems and you can't buy that kind of publicity. She cracked a smile, shaking her head. You are impossible. I am realistic, Noah said. They hate us because we confuse them. People hate what doesn't fit in their little boxes. You are supposed to be the scary alien queen. I am supposed to be the grunt. We swapped scripts. It makes their brains itch. He kissed her knuckles. Let them itch. We have work to do. The evening before the union ceremony, Noah stood on the balcony of the royal spire. The city of Lysithra Prime was spread out below him, a carpet of bioluminescent light breathing in the night. He gripped the railing. His hands were shaking. It wasn't fear of the ceremony. It was something deeper. A hollowness that had been growing since the adrenaline of the battle faded. Noah? He didn't turn. He felt her before he heard her. The bond rippled with her concern, warm and soft like a blanket. Lysara stepped out onto the balcony. The wind caught her silver hair, whipping it around her face. She stepped up beside him, leaning against the railing. You are projecting, she said softly. You feel lost. Noah sighed, looking down at the drop. 3,000 feet. I don't belong here, Lysara, he admitted. She frowned. This is your home, is it? Noah asked. Look at me. I am a human ex-marine living in a crystal tower. I eat food that burns my tongue. I have to wear a translator earpiece to understand half the court. He gestured to the city below, and I can't go back to Earth, to them. I am the guy who defected to the enemy. I am too alien for the humans now, and I am too human for the Valori. I am stranded. He looked at her, his eyes vulnerable. I am just a bodyguard who got promoted. What happens when the war is really over? What happens when you don't need a shield anymore? Lysara moved instantly. She grabbed the lapels of his jacket and pulled him toward her. It wasn't gentle. It was fierce. Do not say that, she whispered, her face inches from his. Do not ever say I do not need you. She let go of his jacket and cupped his face, her thumbs brushing his cheekbones. Belonging is not a place. Noah, it is not a planet. It is not a building. Her eyes bored into his, luminous and unwavering. It is a person, she said. She pressed her palm against his chest, over his heart. I was stranded too, she whispered. I was drowning in this palace until you pulled me out. You are my anchor. Where you stand, I stand. Where you are hated, I will be hated with you. She leaned her forehead against his. You are not a bodyguard, Noah. You are my soul. Do you understand? The bond surged. He felt the absolute terrifying truth of her words. She wasn't saying it to make him feel better. She was stating a fact of the universe. She needed him just as much as he needed her. Noah closed his eyes, letting the warmth of her presence fill the hollow places inside him. "I understand," he whispered. He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her into a crushing hug. They stood there on the balcony, two specks against the sprawling alien skyline, holding on to each other like they were the only solid ground in the galaxy. The union ceremony was held in the Grand Plaza, the same place where the assassins had struck weeks ago. But the blast marks were gone, replaced by banners of silver and blue. Thousands of Valori citizens filled the square. Human delegates stood in the VIP boxes. The air buzzed with tension and anticipation. Noah stood on the dais. He had refused the traditional Valori ceremonial robes, which looked like diaphanous curtains. Instead, he wore a custom outfit, a sharp, military-cut jacket in charcoal gray, but woven with Valori bioluminescent threads that pulsed faintly with a steady blue light. It was a visual statement. Human structure. Valori spirit. Lysara stood beside him. She wore a gown of liquid silver. On her head sat a new crown. It was no longer the heavy neural interface halo that connected her to the weapon systems. This one was delicate, made of clear crystal, linked only to the communication, healing, and agricultural networks. It was a crown of life, not a crown of war. The high priest, an ancient Valori with skin like bark, began the recitation. "We gather to witness the binding of two paths," the priest intoned, "not by blood but by choice, not by conquest, but by understanding." Noah looked out at the crowd. He saw faces of wonder. He saw faces of skepticism. Then, he saw the movement. Front row, Sector 4. A young Valori male, barely out of adolescence, vaulted the security barrier. He didn't have a gun. He had a metal sphere in his hand, a broadcast disruptor, rigged to upload a logic virus into the city's shield grid. "For the blood!" the boy screamed, his voice cracking. "Purity or death!" Guards leveled their weapons. "Hold fire!" Noah roared. The command was so loud, so authoritative, that the guards hesitated. Noah didn't draw his weapon. He stepped off the dais. He walked down the stairs, limping slightly, moving straight toward the boy. "Noah!" Lysara called out, alarm spiking through the bond. "I got this." He sent back. The boy held the sphere up, his hand shaking violently. "Stay back. I will crash the grid. I will let the solar radiation in. I will burn the corruption out." He looked at Noah with eyes full of terror and hate. You are the poison." Noah stopped 10 feet away. He held his empty hands out, palms open. "I know," Noah said calmly. The boy blinked, confused. "What?" "I know the look in your eyes," Noah said, his voice carrying in the silent plaza. "I had the same look when I was 19, on Eridanus 4. The boy's breath hitched. You killed my father's kin there." "I did," Noah admitted, "and I hated them. I hated your whole species. I thought you were monsters. I wanted to burn this whole planet down to glass." He took a step closer. "I thought vengeance would make me feel better," Noah said softly. "I thought if I killed enough of you, the pain in my chest would go away." He stopped, pointing to his own heart. It didn't. It just made the hole bigger. The boy was trembling. Tears were streaming down his face. His grip on the sphere loosened. "You are scared, kid," Noah said gently. "You are scared that you are losing your identity. You are scared that the world is changing and you don't know where you fit." Noah lowered his hands. "But killing us won't stop the change. It will just mean you have to carry the weight of a murder for the rest of your life. And trust me, that weight never gets lighter. The boy looked at the sphere. He looked at Noah. He looked at Lysara, who had descended the stairs and was standing behind Noah, her glow soft and compassionate. I don't want to be a traitor, the boy whispered. Then don't be, Noah said. Be better than that. He held out his hand. Give it to me. The boy hesitated for an agonizing second. Then he slumped. He handed the sphere to Noah. Noah handed it to a guard, who deactivated it instantly. Zira's voice crackled in Noah's earpiece. Virus isolated, good talk, soldier. The guards moved in to arrest the boy. Do not hurt him, Lysara commanded. She stepped forward. She looked at the boy, who was now sobbing, his knees buckling. He will be detained, Lysara announced to the crowd. He will face a trial. He will be heard. We do not execute fear in this empire. We heal it. She looked at Noah. Her pride in him was so intense it almost knocked him over. The crowd was silent for a heartbeat. Then, a human in the back, a delegate, started clapping. Then a Valori noble joined in. Then another. The applause grew. It wasn't the polite applause of a ceremony. It was the raucous, relieved applause of a people who had just seen a disaster turned into a lesson. Noah walked back to Lysara. He let out a shaky breath. That went okay, he muttered. You realize, Lysara whispered, taking his arm, that you just became the most popular politician on the planet. Don't you dare run me for office, Noah warned. She laughed, and they turned back to the priest to finish the vows. That night, the palace was quiet. The celebrations had wound down. The dignitaries had gone home. Noah and Lysara walked through the private gardens on the roof of the spire. It was a biodome, climate-controlled and filled with plants from a dozen worlds. But the ceiling was the masterpiece. It was a holographic projection that simulated the night sky of Earth, the familiar constellations of Orion and Ursa Major, overlaid with the triple moons of Lysithra. A blended sky for a blended life. They sat on a stone bench beneath a weeping willow tree that glowed with bioluminescent sap. Noah loosened his tie. He felt complete. So, Lysara said, leaning her head on his shoulder, the charter is signed. The union is official. What do we do now? Well, Noah said, putting his arm around her. I was thinking about schools. Schools, yeah, integrated academies and places where human kids and Violori kids can grow up together before they learn to hate each other. If we catch them early, maybe the next generation won't need bodyguards and peace treaties. I like that, Lysara murmured, tracing glowing patterns on the back of his hand with her fingertip. And I was thinking about travel. Travel. I want to see the frontier, she said. I want to see the mining colonies on the moons. I want to see the human settlements. I am tired of reading reports. Noah, I want to see my people. We can do that, Noah said. We can take the rusty starling. Theron would love the charter work. They fell into a comfortable silence. The bond between them hummed, a quiet song of joy, relief, and a deep, abiding sense of home. Noah looked down at her. She wasn't glowing brightly now. It was a soft, intimate candlelight. He thought back to the moment he had tackled her on the plaza. He thought about the line he had recorded in his log, the cynical joke he had made. I saved the alien queen from assassins, and she did the unexpected to reward me. He had expected credits. He had expected a medal. He had expected a one-night stand that would leave him feeling emptier than before. He looked at the woman resting against him. The woman who had dove into his mind and kissed his scars. The woman who had refused to let him die. He realized how small his imagination had been. The reward wasn't a thing. It was this. It was a partner who saw his broken places and decided to build a home there. It was a purpose that didn't involve a gun. It was a future that wasn't defined by the past. Lysara looked up. She felt the shift in his thoughts. "What are you thinking?" she asked softly. "I am thinking," Noah said, leaning down to kiss her forehead, "that I got the better end of the deal." She smiled against his skin. "I disagree. Truth keeper." She pulled his face down to hers. The kiss wasn't desperate like the one in the storm. It was slow. It was steady. It was a promise made in the dark and kept in the light. High above the planet, the camera pulls back. The capital city of Lysithra Prime glows like a living jewel against the velvet darkness of space. The crystal spires pulse with light, connected by the weaving traffic of 1,000 ships. The atmospheric shield shimmers, no longer a barrier but a window. In a high tower of the royal palace, 2 silhouettes stand framed in a golden window, side by side, looking out at the stars. Noah's voice, older now, wiser, speaks over the image. "I saved the alien queen from assassins. I thought I was just doing a job. I thought I was saving a symbol." The lights of the city seemed to brighten, blending with the starlight. "But she did the unexpected to reward me." The 2 figures turned from the window, moving back into the warmth of the room, together. "She gave me a life worth saving, too,"